according to that.
Oh, no, we didn't have it on break.
Oh,
Do
no.
on break first.
Oh,
I'm trying to.
You only do on break if you click on it.
I kept clicking it. Wasn't clicking. Okay, we are on break. We're not really here. You don't actually hear us.
Yeah, hopefully you do, though.
La da 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 da.
There are.
Ya da 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 da. And now we're live.
Congratulations, you have made it to our live stream, in theory.
This here is famous game designer Lorianne Cole.
And this is also a game designer named Corey Cole.
Equally famous, but actually I don't do as much.
Well, yes. Hello. Hello, Phantom Beaver. Welcome. We are again doing a live stream playing the original Heroes Quest, to our amazement and surprise, because
Very slowly.
very slowly, because
Why are we amazed and surprised?
we don't actually know what we're doing. We don't always remember.
Oh, we don't
everything.
necessarily remember the game, but
Right.
remember parts of it.
Therefore, it's a big surprise for us too.
I remembered how many apples I needed.
You did, and pre-did it before you knew you needed those apples, except for the fact that this giant wanted you to buy them for him. And other than that, that's about the excitement of, if you haven't been watching the previous streams, that's about as far as we've gotten in 2 sessions.
And it's about 2 days into the game.
Yep. And we're
So
playing
in one
it
day-
real time. Yes.
Yeah. I think that we should be able to finish in a year.
Maybe.
I think the game's about 25 days.
Okay. At the rate we're going, who knows? Hello, Arlo. Welcome. So, at any rate, it's a very shiny, bright winter day here in Southern California.
Late winter or pre-spring.
Well, yeah.
Definitely speedrun the game in a year.
Well, at the rate we're going, maybe. We're not doing too well at that. But
I don't think I've fought any combats yet.
no,
And I played a warrior. I set up as a fighter
Yes.
character so I could
So you
fight.
can play a warrior and actually do fighting, and so far
Brave, bold warrior.
we have avoided everything, including most of the game.
We haven't encountered anything.
I know, but that's just it.
We encountered a fox,
Ah, yes.
I think, and we encountered a giant.
And we got a warning from the fox of some sort, and yeah. Other than that, that was the excitement. We have eaten at the inn. Yes.
And met a turbaned stranger.
Yes, we
Abdullah
did.
Doo.
We met Abdullah Doo. So all of you who know this game well, you know how well we're into it. Not very far. Any rate, yes.
And it seems like his name could be considered a bit insulting these days.
Oh well. It's just a silly name.
Maybe a veiled reference to Yabba Dabba Doo.
Not very veiled, and not very at all. Let's see. It is 4 days before Valentine's Day, and I did consider doing a Love is in the Air, romance in Quest for Glory, except that we're still playing the first game, and the first game of the series has no romance. For obvious reasons.
Nonsense! We got to flirt with the
You get to flirt. You
flower
do.
seller.
Sort
the
of
fruit seller.
flirt.
Sort of.
Yes, and considering she's probably, 16 years old, and,
Or maybe 14. They mature
maybe,
fast.
yes, I know, so it's somewhere in there, yeah. Is there a class that is canon for the Quest for Glory games? I know Paladin is technically the honorable choice, but I definitely enjoy Thief with Magic the most. That's how I play it. I played Thief with Magic and the combination classes.
Yeah, but canon is what you have fun with.
Right. That's why there are the choices, because each story I mentally role play through them and try to give a rich story to any of them.
Yeah, the canon choices are fighter, magic user, thief, and later paladin. And I would say that, let's say, a thief with magic is slightly less canon. Okay, so it is allowed, but the canon would be a thief with no magic because that's the basic character.
Well, the advantage of having a basic character is that you will only have one path through the game when you're playing that basic character, and you don't have a lot of choices that duplicate the other classes.
And that you can reasonably believe that we coded it for that
Yes, but if you play a multi-character, the only disadvantage to you is that you can't go back in and play the other routes with complete surprise trying to do those puzzles, because what we found is people will find an approach to solve a problem and use that approach throughout the game for the most part.
That applies to anything, not just
Right,
Quest
that's
of Glory.
life. And so therefore, if you solve everything through magic and you're playing a magic user thief, yes, you'll do your thief things and then you'll do your magic things, but you can't go back really and play the magic user or the thief in most of those games and really have that thrill of discovery and what is new, except in the later games.
I will respectfully slightly disagree with that, which is that you may end up taking the same approach on some of the puzzles in both of the games, but there will be certainly some things that are different.
Yes. Yeah. Like the magic stuff and that. And you won't be able to get to some of those things if you're a multi-class character. The protagonist of Quest for Glory is a tabula rasa.
Which clearly means that we should have named our character that.
Yes, clearly. Any choice that works for you is the canon one. Correct. That's exactly why the character has no name and has no voice in the game, because it's you. Hello and Happy New Year! Happy Lunar New Year! We're Golden Drake! Yay!
Yes, yay! That's not exactly you. It is the representation of what you would like to be in this context. Because it's all for role players.
It's all for you. We do it all for you. And, yeah, cool.
Well,
fun
I mean,
stuff.
we did, in a sense, redefine the computer role-playing game to say that you're actually playing a role. Because the early computer role-playing games were loosely based on Dungeons & Dragons, but with very... Pardon me, I have a cough drop in here. With very little memory in the computers. They had to very much restrict what you could do. And what they basically allowed was combat and casting magic spells and so on, but they didn't really have any character development. So, in these games, you are actually playing the role of the hero, and what that role is largely, to the most biggest extent we could allow, defined by you.
Yep. It's your choice.
But it's your hero.
It's
your heroic self, not your ordinary everyday self.
Synapses. Thank you so much for your games. Quest for Glory is my favorite game series of all time, with 4 being the favorite of the series, despite back in the day getting stuck on a bug. I'm so glad that you got past that bug and still enjoyed the game, yes.
There were many.
In some situations, you're playing a role. Yeah. Rolling down hills, rolling down strange corridors in strange warlock dens and things like that, yeah.
And relatively few wheeled vehicles in Quest for Glory, though.
Getting stuck on a bug in Shadows is basically tradition. Well, yeah, not necessarily a good one, yes. I get dizzy just looking at that, David. Yes, role-playing games for the win, yes.
Okay, everyone roll a D100.
I don't think they can.
The highest number will be the winner.
Yeah. Can't do that. We're not in Discord. Which you can do.
You can do it in Discord? Yeah.
Yes,
you can. Yeah. Inside channel.
Right. So, oh, look. All sorts of little things rotating and gyrating.
David TKI rolled a 49, which is the highest number.
Wow, yes. Phantom Beaver says there are many things done in games like Quest for Glory that are common in modern games, but one awesome feature that's hardly been used is carrying the character over from previous games. I get that it's difficult to balance games around that idea, but it feels so good to continue to play that character after you've shaped in a previous game. In theory, that's kind of World of Warcraft. You never stop playing that same character. So they are continuing the concept of it. You just don't have individual games all of a sudden. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the D&D games that we play, that was what they were all about. They were campaign-style games. You rolled up a character, and you played that character until they died. Even if your character died, they might get resurrected. If they didn't get resurrected, you would roll up another character, but they were still in that same world, so they were still continuing the story. And So that's kind of the idea we tried to get across with Quest for Glory, is that you were one character going through these 5 different scenarios, effectively.
Yes. And Brainiac gives the die roller. Well, you can just do a die roll in out of Chrome. You can just do a die roll that way too.
Really? I have a Chrome browser right here.
You do. Yes. Look for Dice Roller.
Dice roller, dice roller.
And
I get advertisements for dice rollers.
You do. What
that
do you
says
know?
show my desktop.
See, yes, roll a die. They have a roll die there, and yes.
20 dice, high roller, 20 sides,
Wow.
4 pieces
Yes.
dice tray.
Yes, you too can buy dice.
But rolladie.net is the
Yes.
one that
that's
lets
what
you
he
bring
did.
it to share.
Well, mine will actually bring it up here, and we'll do you can just roll it without going to a website. But I don't know.
1 dice, 100 sided. Go or start? I don't know.
Go.
What did start mean?
82.
I rolled an 82.
You probably can.
Did anyone else?
See, you can do a sequence if you're doing a sequence.
What's that mean?
If you want to do 5 6-sided dice and you
Right.
want to see the results, you could do them, multiple times.
Okay, so start maybe.
Maybe. Look, they're rolling.
Oh, I see.
And then you got to say
Stop.
stop.
Ah,
An 80 and a 4 and 18 and 100.
100.
Yay.
What are the odds that on only 7 rolls that,
You would get 100.
actually on 8 rolls because I did one earlier,
Yeah.
that I would get 100 on just the 5th roll? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 4th of these, 5th all together.
Phantom Beaver asks, were there ever plans to continue the story of the hero after Quest for Glory 5, or by the time 5 was in the works, was it clear you could only pull off one last game? 5 was always going to be the story of the hero and his logical conclusion. But we did talk about, having the Quest for Glory series continue with the children of the hero and that continue that way.
And we also discussed with Yosemite Entertainment the idea, we guess we can go full screen
Yes,
again.
back to expansion packs.
The idea that we could do expansion packs and, do things with fighting pirates and maybe kind of doing an Odyssey sort of, Homer's Odyssey kind of thing with our Greekish setting.
Right.
Greek Isle
so
setting.
Therefore,
So those were some of the things that we discussed. Plans would be too strong a term. The plan actually almost became making a multiplayer game. And in fact, they wanted to rebrand The Realm, which had been developed at the Yosemite Entertainment part of Sierra, as World of Quest for Glory.
yes. So therefore, it was envisioned as not as game number 5 when we got rehired by Yosemite Entertainment to do the game. They really wanted World of Quest for Glory and do the multiplayer online game.
And what's interesting is they came up with that title before Blizzard came up with World of Warcraft. So we were in the mid-90s, so around 95, 96, somewhere around there, and they said, let's do the World of Quest for Glory. And we discovered that the realm really wasn't set up for the kind of things that we have in a Quest for Glory, and that by the time we put all that stuff in, it would delay it like a year, so they weren't interested in that.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Bashar says the Witcher series lets you carry over saves so that the characters in the sequels would react to things you did in the previous games, but not on the level of carrying over stats and abilities. Well, that's an interesting choice as a design.
And that's certainly something we wanted to do. We did save a few flags, as we call them,
Yes.
in the character save data that talked about different things you had done, like whether or not you defeated Baba Yaga, whether you had helped. I don't know whether you helped the fox was in there, but there were basically 4 or 5 things that we saved, and we were intending to make use of those in later games until the data got corrupted around the 3rd game.
Right. How far did you plan the idea about the hero going to with Rakesh to Ireland to found the Council of Paladins? Was that going to be in the game? How much of that was planned out? That was more what was going on with creating the book series that we were going to do with Michelle Baker. Michelle and I talked at length what was going on after the,
So that wasn't from the forums of the School for Heroes?
It wasn't the forums. It was really created out of the game in order to explain, some of the characters and create the council and things like that.
That's interesting because this is the first time I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Now, I had heard about the Council of Paladins because Lori had come up with that idea for the website.
Right. We used that.
That was based on your discussions with Michelle?
Basically, when we talked about it originally, we talked about having that. And therefore, when we were doing the School for Heroes, where people were actually taking the parts of paladins and things, it was that point, it was all me, elaborated on the concept, yes, and actually had who was on the council, and for the purpose of the school, you honestly became part of that. You had to, not exactly, you had to create your own coat of arms, you had to apply to it, and if you passed over a year or two of actually taking the classes, you could become an official paladin and get your own seal of approval from the council. And you had
to get that far?
Yeah, I had to do it a couple times, which was a role-playing event. So, very cool. I really enjoyed doing that, but it was like one-on-one D&D, where you're the GM trying to do that for 70, 80 people,
So this difficult to read name,
Oh my God.
Walker Lismore Ranger 69, or Walker Lismore.
It's too hard to read. It's
Ranger 69.
Not just that it's too long. It's
also that it's in a bright blue on a black background.
Yeah.
Said, you guys were my heroes when I was a kid. Thank you.
Yes,
and so glad to join the streams. Thank you. Oh, welcome.
Yes, we're just glad you joined the stream.
We're possibly less heroic in old age, but
not much.
Only a little less heroic. We're still doing stuff. Bill Kuhn is subscribed with Prime. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Subscribe for 6 months.
Walking zombie across the screen. I wonder if we can put our own. I know we can.
That's probably programmable.
Yes, because I've seen it done on other things. We need to learn actually what we're doing, but we haven't bothered.
But I wanted to go back to Ireland and the whole Council of Paladins thing, and the Irish background actually became part of the backstory for Hero U Road to Redemption. Lori...
not the paladin part.
That was part of it too, but the Ireland thing is the background between Sean O'Connor and why he has an Irish name.
Yes.
And stuff that went on in Ireland was there. And then further, the whole idea, yes, E-I-R-E, the whole idea of the, the castle and the fighting against Ottoman evil, the book that you find in the library that tells kind of the history of, was that the Illuminati?
Yes.
The history of the Illuminati. That refers to, I think, the castle in Ayr.
Nope.
No, doesn't.
Nothing.
Well, all right. Backstory has to do with the Council Paladins having fought a great threat in Ayr, and then some of them having sent representatives.
Nope. Nope. It was in England. Londinium is destroyed.
Oh, Londinium. Okay, well, it's only a few hundred miles away.
Right, yes. London was destroyed by this, and so, no, it didn't take place in Ireland after all.
Okay.
But Sean's father and his uncle came from Ireland.
England, Ireland, UK, Britain.
Somewhere over there. Oh, there
Albion.
We can read his name when he subscribed. There.
Ah, thank you.
Thank you more, Walker. And, yes. So, any rate, yes, we have a lot of story there that's asides from the books and from the games.
So, yeah, everything comes together. So, I mean, the Quest for Glory games, in a sense, are a melange of things that we'd experienced, things that we've read, and it's basically any idea that felt like it fit in the game went in there. So the rescuing a fox on the road was a very common trope in fairy tales, that you would find an animal that needed help, and you help the animal, and it does you a favor later in the game.
Yes.
Or the story.
Yes. So that was what we were pulling through when we did the fox. Let's see. We have a new first time chat, which is Paul, and Paul says, "I've got the same problem as Walker. The story writing actually led to me reading lots of books and having such a love of history. I was born in South Africa, so I loved Quest for Glory 3 for all the awesome references." Oh, awesome.
We had a fan in South Africa back, in the 90s, commented that he did not like the fact that Quest for Glory 3 gave you honor points for giving money to a beggar.
I think it was 2.
No, I think he was talking about 3.
I don't think there was a beggar in 3.
He was specifically talking about the African setting. It was 2 in Africa?
No, 2 was in, back in Arabia, yes. But yeah. I don't think I had...
No, he was talking about the one with an African setting. So
okay.
it was shortly after 3 came out.
Honestly, though...
And he said...
Okay, a musician singing for money, not begging. We did not have, because I designed that game, have a beggar in 3, because begging was not appropriate for Tarna.
Oh.
So he was complaining about 2.
Okay.
Or 1.
Must be about 2. Anyway, said that it's a bad idea to give money to beggars because most of the beggars in South Africa, he said, were basically parts of criminal organizations, and that if people did not give them money, then they would get honest work and so on. That is also a common stance of one of the political parties in the U.S. Is that there should be no charity and no welfare because it encourages people not to work.
Yeah. There was a thief you could give money to in 3. Yes, you
yes.
could give. Yes, you
and
could
give him food for honor points.
Right. And as a result of you doing that act of charity to the thief, he becomes a better person. What do you know?
And comes back and helps you at the end, just
right.
like the fox.
Yeah. So the fox doesn't actually help you.
No, it doesn't. But the fox, if he had been in a fairy tale.
Yes, in this concept of this world, there is justice and there is karma and there is, proper rewarding for a good deed done, which is why a game is a lot better than real life in some ways. Yes.
So doing good deeds is a good thing to do.
Luckily
you often
this
get
took place in Tarna and not
Pretoria, South Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bears
we are marching to Pretoria. Pretoria. We learned that in elementary school.
I see. We didn't learn that one in elementary school.
And then the Firesign Theater parody of that, which I can't remember at the moment, but yeah.
Oh, well. So, at any rate, welcome all.
Firesign Theater one went, marching to the death until we meet our last reward. Zion, almighty Zion.
Okay. Thank you for those weird references. Yes. Okay.
Nothing weirder than Firesign Theater?
No. Well, maybe.
We were inspired by Firesign Theater and Monty Python and things like it. Terry Pratchett.
Yes, our humor is eclectic and unusual. So yes, we were. Let's see. Back to the subject of romance. Eventually, because of Valentine's Day coming up.
Happy upcoming Valentine's Day.
We do have romance in our games, particularly in Hero U, Rogue to Redemption. You can romance almost everybody, and it just was a choice in the Quest for Glory series to not have romance until you could actually have a valid conclusion to your romance. Yeah, and
valid conclusion meaning getting married somehow isn't.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that, did I? But you could court them in that. You could, yes. Let's start up Quest for Glory 1 for Valentine's Day so we can hit on that underage centaur. Yes! Well, yes.
Malvage.
Malvage.
True love.
Yes, true love. Indeed. Yes. Well, she may be underage, but she is almost at the age to get married. And she soon gets
And
married.
by horse standards, she's actually pretty old.
Ancient, yes,
Yeah.
but she's not a horse. Thank
Okay.
goodness. I'm glad I was a teenager when I crushed on Elsa. Yes. So yes.
Where else it got crushed?
But the centaur actually does get married soon after, and that's why you have Fritz in Tilly's Tale.
Or in Hero Tilly
Summer Days, Tilly's
Summer Day
Tale.
Heroes. Lori wanted to call it Summer Days and Hero U Tilly's Tale, and I said that's too many words and too much punctuation, so I shortened it to Summer Days Tilly's Tale. Might have been a marketing error. Who knows?
At any rate, it didn't. It's what is. And
So there is
therefore,
there is a Fritz.
Fritz is the logical extension of your.
Fader and horse feathers.
Yes. Well, no. He's Ferguson. He's
Ferdson.
yeah,
Ferdson.
Yes, because
Horse sense.
he's got his father's name.
Ferdson. Horse sense.
And honestly, when I think about it, the concept for centaur behavior is that traditionally the females own the land and the males travel around and try to attract, court the female and go to live on the farm, and his sons will not inherit. So Fritz wouldn't have inherited the farm anyway.
Bashar actually meant Hilde when he said Elsa.
Hilde. Okay.
It was okay to have a crush on Elsa too. I mean,
Yes.
Elsa was designed to be crush-worthy.
And personally, I had a taking towards the healer. Yes, good. I'm glad somebody
Says I kid, of course, but I mean, she's really sweet to you.
She is sweet. She's and kind of
Very
desperate. Yeah. Kind of like she would have liked you to, flirt with her, but she was really a little past the flirting age for you.
And because she is a little older, she ended up adopting a daughter.
Yes. And she adopts what becomes Tilly.
Tilly Appleberry.
Yes.
So Tilly is the adopted daughter of the healer from the first game.
Yes. Oh, not Elsa. Hilde. I get their names mixed up. Probably why that date never worked out. Yeah. Yes.
Would Hilda marry the Guildmaster or Otto von Goon?
Ha ha ha. Neither. Sorry. Hilde would have liked to have flirted with anybody. She really wanted, to have a boyfriend and actually have a life that was outside the farm.
All right. I could ship a relationship between the Guildmaster and the healer.
Yes.
And that she
would
go
and great.
And give him his balms and make sure that he's got enough to eat and
I could have shipped
warm
that
blanket.
too, but he never
That
left
would be a
town.
lovely older person experience relationship.
Yes. So it's a shame they just didn't get together, and she had and Amelia really does have a fulfilling life doing what she loves. So and she loves Tilly, so she had the whole experience. She was the midwife.
And you'll love Tilly
Tilly.
too. So if you have not yet purchased on Steam, because it isn't on GOG, or on the Nintendo Switch store, Summer Days Tilly's Tale, you really ought to.
Because
you'll love Tilly too.
It's the extension of the
No,
games.
just because they'll love Tilly.
Well, I know that. The healer drove me crazy, always moving about when I was trying to click on her.
Yeah, well, this obviously we're playing the Quest for Glory 1 VGA point-and-click version. If you'd been on the typed version, all you have to do is hit the space bar, and that brings up your, or the enter, and that brings up your, I think space bar, brings up your text entry line and freezes the animation. So you would have been better off with the original game. And we can go, I think we met the healer 2 weeks ago when we played.
Yeah, we did. So the theory is that actually it's probably around autumn, right around just about the Harvest Festival time, all of the centaurs gather as a regional gathering somewhere at a major town that's near a big city. So they come from all around, in that case, the German landscape, which was, what did we name that? Germania. For the Germania landscape, they would come and gather at a big harvest festival and basically dating game.
Ah, so it's basically Wiccans at
no, not
on
the
May Day when they all stay up all night and
well, they don't
have
but they have parties.
Parties, yes, parties is what we should call
parties, but no, they don't go breeding. They're not animals. They go courting. And it's all
as opposed to Wiccans.
They go drinking,
oh.
And they go. All the older people go drinking and celebrating.
Fermented apples. That's what those apples are actually for.
Yes, and the younger people all go courting, courting, and try to attract a suitable mate, and that's where Hildy met Ferguson, and I can't remember what his first name is, but he has a name. Believe me, we have documents for all of this stuff, or at least a Bible that I've got for these characters.
And this is much like many young people going to science fiction conventions or SCA events.
Trying to finally find a person they could be compatible with, yeah. For all of us nerds out there.
So my old theory about science fiction conventions is you've got all these people who are like the brightest people in their school class, and they just can't communicate or get along or have relationships with most of the other people in school, but they go to something like a science fiction convention, and all of a sudden you have everybody there. Well, at least before they turned into media conventions, everybody there was a reader, and everybody was above average intelligence because, people who read a lot tend to be, and you could actually talk about things you had in common, like science fiction, fantasy stories, and find relationships that would last.
Right. So, yes, there's a marriage mart, as they used to call it in the Regency novels. There is a marriage mart for centaurs. And it's, Germania, the Germania one is only one of those things. It's all over for different groups. Believe me, the centaurs are across most of the European continent, not just Greece and suddenly Germania.
So what's the Renaissance Festival? Is that a love mart as opposed to a marriage mart?
Perhaps. The internet has made it a lot easier to connect with people with shared interests or they can relate to. Exactly. But in our days, there was no internet. And what we would do, we actually helped run conventions, science fiction conventions, and try to get special interest groups where you could get together with people that had shared the same interests, and it wasn't for the purpose of finding a mate necessary, but it was for the purpose of finding somebody you could honestly talk to. And nowadays, the internet, you can find it, and that's it makes you both more connected and less connected.
Whereas when Lori and I met, she was almost entirely off the grid, did not own a telephone, let alone internet, which didn't exist.
Or television or anything. I was off the grid.
She was off the grid. So we communicated by writing letters back and forth or postcards.
Yep.
For 2 or 3 years, felt like. It's probably less than that.
It was just a year.
Felt like 2 or 3 years because it took so long.
Because I was living on the Indian reservation as I taught school, yes. Yes, talk about old school. It was an old school, indeed. Back in my day, we just talked about that in the school library. The local card shop had a few people too. Yes, card shops.
Now, card shops, when we were kids, meant Hallmark.
Yeah. This was about regional... New South Wales in Australia. I had to not safe for work, it's like
as opposed to North Southwest, not safe for work.
Yeah, right. So
NSW.
I had to really retranslate that one in my brain. New South Wales, yes.
Very good.
Mm-hmm. However, I can't read That was Tim Graham. Okay.
Tim Graham. Tim Graham is a good Australian sounding name. Who's the? Tim Minchin is.
Yeah.
He's Australian, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Funny guy.
why don't we actually start the game and we can continue talking. And the subject of romance again. Don't worry, Corey. I laughed at the Hallmark joke. Oh, no.
It wasn't a joke.
Ah, let's see.
It's
supposed to be
I do have
Sunday.
this up. It's over there. Okay, so I have over here on the sideboard our Patreon.
Ah, he's going to do a commercial.
And a little commercial for our Patreon.
If you're not going to it, you're missing out. And read our stuff, because we tried to post stuff that are interesting.
Yeah, I do mostly public posts here, so you don't actually have to be a patron to enjoy our Patreon.
And as long as we're
but we do
advertising,
occasionally do benefits for patrons. Waste your own money.
Streamlabs chat bot. Where's your
I maybe
Discord?
don't have a Discord up.
You don't have a Discord? Don't you have a Discord icon in the bottom to get to?
Oh, no.
Well, silly. There it is on the sidebar. But silly person, I have a connection.
Our Discord is you would go to Transsolar Games.
You can see Corey
Transsolar Games is a public Discord, so you can just search for it, or I can send you an invite.
Invite people.
Copy.
Uh-huh.
You want me to invite the bravest little toaster?
Ah. And
And there is our Discord. The Discord is a place to communicate with other fans of our games and talk about
things like
stuff.
King's Quest, apparently. Remaking my favorite childhood game, King's Quest VIII, Mask of Eternity.
Which is interesting because
somebody
actually liked King's Quest Mask of Eternity.
There's some, yes, trying to remake this.
It says, turns out there are some fans.
Wow. Okay.
Are you gonna show you that's safe for work? You want to maximize that?
No, I'll just because you can't see much anyway.
It's all dark. You can see it better. You can see it better if you maximized it.
Well, that's okay. It's a nice 3D layout like people were trying to do for our games, clearly.
And of course, King's Quest VIII and Quest for Glory 5 were both 3D games, but 3D technology was very primitive at the time and blocky and didn't look that good. And the characters, to my mind, it's the characters that really killed it.
Yeah.
That they just don't look good.
Yes, I can't.
So this you can see is great degree of detail.
And
we have various Quest for Glory channels.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Hi, yes. Today at 2:38. You can say
that's coincidence.
Yes, what a coincidence, Bashar.
I learned from online gaming a type O/, and that is waving a hand.
Really?
Waving. Yes.
That's
a wave.
An abstract.
That is a wave.
Okay.
Now, the most important channel in our Discord is the Punitentiary. #Punitentiary.
All right.
And that's where people put puns that we can imprison, the most dangerous puns. And it says, Scottish Twitter remains undefeated.
Okay.
Read that.
Every time I go to a coffee shop, I think about the time last summer when I asked for a latte with oat milk, and the poor lad behind the counter somehow managed to say with a straight face, "Sir, I'm sorry, I cannot make a latte without milk."
Oh, without milk.
I see. Oh, without milk.
I cannot make a latte without milk.
Okay. I couldn't get that one. Rat is short for Rafu. Okay.
So these are very random, and some of them are funny.
Yeah, so I was walking down the street where the houses were numbered 64K, 128K, 256K, 512K, and 1MB.
That was a trip down memory lane.
Yay. Okay, yes, and a first-time chat from somebody else that made it so that I can't read. Jabluk. Hello, I just wanted to say me and my mom both enjoyed Quest for Glory back when I was a kid. Thank you for creating that experience that I got to share with my mom.
Yay!
That's so
and yay, Mom, because somebody actually closer to our age was playing it.
Yes, well, Yay for her.
We were in our 30s before we even started working on Heroes Quest.
Yes, when I first played Dungeons and Dragons, actually, we got our mother into playing. My mother was
fun.
to play with us when we were doing this.
I never did play. We're in our upper 60s now. I just read an article. There are more 65-year-olds than ever in the U.S.
Oh no, just what everybody needed. Yes. Heard from someone else. I found myself in a pickle recently. It was quite the dilemma. Yes. That belongs on there, definitely.
Definitely post that to our penitentiary.
Yep. Yeah, my mom is a similar age as you, I think. Probably, possibly my black hen, yes.
And Granddad used to be a regular, but he was apparently was a granddad and passed away.
Alas. Oh, really? What was Granddad's handle?
Do you know his handle on
that was Quest for More Glory.
Yeah, we didn't do it.
We only did that a little bit. But Tim Graham just gifted a sub to Ace and Rex.
Yes, he gave a random sub and it went to Ace and Rex.
Granddad was his handle. Oh, okay.
So we have the relatively recent member, Tim Graham 82, has accidentally gifted a tier 1 sub to one of our longest standing members. But I'm sure Asen appreciates it.
Yes. Thank you for that gift sub. That is so sweet.
And I think we do get a few pennies out of each sub gifted.
Well, all right. Have we done all the commercials now?
Yeah, probably. We had to go off and play Heroes Quest.
Oh, we should. So go to the webcam first so you can bring it up.
We're on the webcam. Oh, no, we're on the desktop.
We're on the desktop and showing there.
And going to the webcam.
I got my original box Hero Quest from my best friend's mom who was cleaning out her old games. Oh, cool. Okay. Oh, hey, you're most welcome. Thanks for creating such fantastic memories. Well, we hope to create many more fantastic memories. And this should be one of them.
Well, a few more at the rate we're going.
Well, no. I mean,
it takes us about 5 years to make a game these days.
Well, yes, but, fantastic memories of talking with us in person.
That's true. Every 2 weeks we do that.
Yes.
Whereas it was only one game a year when we were in Sierra.
At best.
But you get to come to our talks
at our house, yes, effectively.
Yeah, you're at our home and our office.
Need to start collecting those old game boxes. All I have left is the original Quest for One fax manual. Well, that was a fun manual. Paul Kiss is gifting a subscription to the community.
Oh, I thought you were talking about fax machine.
Oh, no.
How to use your fax machine.
Yes, well, it's a
and of course here's
famous adventurous
really
correspondence school.
The really classic stuff. This is our collection of the spellbook.
Yeah.
Because this is what we did before Sierra's. I did a D&D module, well, a role-playing game module called the Tower of Indomitable Circumstance for Judges Guild. And we did this high quality.
Yes, look at this quality, people.
This absolute high quality 1970s newsletter, which was all typewritten on.
It wasn't typewritten; it was computer written.
First ones were.
It was written on a word processor. Corey.
All right, it was probably probably WordStar.
WordStar, yes.
And then by. In the very first issue, we had a comic.
Yes, we did.
So. Ooh, this is the first and second issue stuck together here.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so on the back of the first issue, we had A Hobbit is Born by Laurie Armbruster after an idea by Richard Aronson. So it originally started out as just you, and later on we just credited Cole and Aronson.
Yes, we Cole, yes.
And this has these characters called Erasmus and Fenris. And I told you we stole from everywhere when we did Heroes Quest. So.
Even ourselves. How about that?
We stole from ourselves.
I love old zine and fanzines.
And so that was the first ones were full paper size, 8.5 by 11, as opposed to.
Is that dot matrix?
It was not.
It was not.
I had actually a printer I had a Centronics printer. That was a very expensive printer at the time.
Oh, yeah. We printed these at home.
Yeah.
When he did, and then made copies at work when they work, actually.
And then we started getting fancy. So
yeah.
The second year, Volume 2, we started using color paper. It's still the same weight.
And have a cover.
And we got a image for it, a drawing.
Who did that one?
Is it Mel White?
Maybe.
Might
What
have-
does it say? Do we...
No, this one's Mel White.
That's
This
Mel
is
White.
Interstyle.
Okay, it isn't.
I'm not sure.
They didn't. Artists. It says art credits.
Art
Barb
credits?
Nolan.
Barb,
Cover.
oh, Barb Nolan. She was my coworker at Olivetti.
Yeah. Okay.
She did the cover, page 2, page 4, page 14,
Yeah.
page 15,
Wait,
and
when
page
we
20.
got people to illustrate, we used it. Let's see. A question, if you don't
So
mind.
here's some pumpkins by Barb Nolan.
Do
Jack
you
Lanterns.
miss text parsers? There's a fan remake of Quest for Glory 2 that still has the text parser as an option, and I felt like having both the parser and a more modern GUI interface side by side was a cool experience. I never missed text parsers, except that it was easier to create
here it
puzzles
is.
for text parsers. You give away a lot when you go to the non-text parsers, but honestly,
Lori likes point and click.
I like point and click because I like.
She doesn't like having to type stuff in
It
because
isn't the typing; it's the not knowing what to type.
so it's for trying to guess the designer's mind and figure out what will actually be handled by the parser. And I've seen a lot of reviews of adventure games that talk about having a mediocre parser, and those reviews basically don't know what they're talking about because it isn't the parser. The parser is just the thing that takes things, breaks it up into words, and figures out the grammar, the structure of the words, and then hands it off to the logic of the game. And so it is the game logic that is messed up, not the parser, when it fails to understand stuff.
Yeah, well, it's only as good as it gets programmed. Honestly.
So many of our fans love the old text games. So going even further astray, Lori had the famous debate with Ron Gilbert of Monkey Island, Secret Monkey Island fame, in which they talked about death in adventure games. And Ron argued strenuously that you should not allow characters to die in an adventure game because when they die, you come to this interface that says restore, restart, or quit. And that is so artificial that it takes you out of the game and ruins the immersion in it. Lori argued.
I argued that it is the potential for death, that you could make a mistake that would get you out of the game, that brings this immediacy and this visceral sense of what the game is about. So in Quest for Glory, you feel like you're part of the game. You're not just intellectually, solving puzzles, but you are this character in this world, and that is what makes that experience. So that's the real.
So it isn't death; it's the fear of death, or the potential of death.
Yes.
That adds stress, and stress is actually makes the challenge, makes the game more exciting.
Yes.
So going back to text parsers, typing stuff into a text parser lets you type exactly what you want, but you're thinking. Most people are thinking about what they're typing.
What word they have to
And
use.
And that is a diversion from being totally immersed in the fantasy.
Right. So it has its place. It depends on the game. It's great for a King's Quest game. It's not great for a game where I want you to feel like you are there and that is you on the screen. So.
And in fact, the LucasArts games such as Secret of Monkey Island and Maniac Mansion and so on had a point-and-click interface from the beginning. And they had verbs and nouns.
From the beginning on the original,
yes,
really?
Yes. I don't think they ever had a text parser.
Okay. Well, you had to figure out how to
So
solve
that's consistent.
You had to figure out how to solve the puzzle of what do you do when you get thrown over into the water. And I don't know how you solved that one.
You click.
You had to hold your breath for 10 minutes.
Well, you automatically held your breath for 10 minutes.
Well, until you.
But you basically clicked on things in the environment
Okay.
and then chose verbs to interact with them.
Okay, let's see. Text is fun. If you're a good typist, it can be fun. And we've actually even if you're a
heard.
bad typist, because you can learn how to spell.
Yeah,
so
we heard.
were good
We
things.
heard from a lot of fans that they learned English or learned how to spell by playing our games.
So these are all good things. You just ask what I prefer, and I tell you, because I want that interface between the player and the game to be invisible and something you don't even bother thinking about.
And what I don't miss about text parsers are when there wasn't sufficient stuff handled so that practically everything you typed, it said, I don't understand that. I don't know what you're trying to say. That's no fun.
Yeah.
But if the game was, written cleverly so that it understood most of the relevant stuff that people are trying to say, and it's pretty cool to have that surprise element of not being told what to type.
Yeah. So, and when we were doing a text adventure style game, even then we wanted to make sure that it became as obvious which words were actually used for the text parser type thing.
And I've talked about this in the stream again, so I'll try and keep it quick. But the other reason that Sierra got away from text parsers is that Pablo Guinness had developed a really impressive text parser around the time of Quest for Glory 3 and so on, and Quest for Glory 2. Quest for Glory 2. Yeah. A really impressive thing that really understood full English sentences and so on. And it was 1/3 of all of the entire SCI interpreter. It was too much memory. And so Ken Williams and company made the decision to eliminate the parser and the text entry, partly to free up memory so they could do 256 color graphics, and partly so the games would be playable on consoles, like the PlayStation and the Nintendo consoles, so they could get a wider audience because none of those machines had keyboards.
Yep. And so back to the people talking. Bill Kuhn says Richard Aronson, who was my he wrote some articles for the Spellbook, and in fact wrote the Eric and the Dreaded Gazebo D&D story was first printed in our magazine. Yes.
Although he claims it was printed in Alarms and Excursions first.
And it could have been.
It might have been
another fanzine.
But it was picked up from our Mensa D&D fanzine, Spellbook. Was picked up by the general Mensa publication and spread from there to multiple other local groups. And I think that was what really caused it to spread around the world.
And he is the voice of Cedric.
Yes.
He will always be the voice of Cedric. And Arlo asks if our son actually appreciate the value and history of all this stuff, or should we make sure that you leave it to the fan community in your will? Exactly. It goes to the fan community.
Our son would be perfectly happy with us doing that.
Yes, would not appreciate having to have this much junk, ever.
Michael is very successful in his own right, but he is also, a minimalist, doesn't like a lot of clutter.
He's so, where did he come from?
Yeah. He likes tech gadgets, but he likes tech gadgets that do things like, clean the house for him.
Let's see. Those old fanzines were real labors of love. Yeah, exactly. And some of them had really gorgeous artwork in them.
Shaking the
Some
screen.
very talented fan artists out there. There were, and we tried to use them as much as we could because my values were always to have something that looked great as well as was entertaining. So
yeah, we had Talon was one of our artists that we had actually purchased one of his pieces at Denvention, Science Fiction Convention in Denver, and noted on the back that it said you can reuse this, commercially or any way you want. And so we ran into him there and said, okay, is it cool for us to put this on the cover of our fanzine? He said, absolutely.
All right. And what did Talon do?
David Joyner, he was co-author of the Fairy Tale Adventure.
Yes, he eventually got into computer gaming too.
And Bradley W. Skank, we had admired some pieces of the same convention that were not for sale and later bought some of his artwork, and he was so grateful that he did some covers for us.
Yeah.
Bradley became a major developer and artist in the Amiga world, and he did. I can't remember the name of the company now, but he did Amiga role-playing games.
So yes, large language models might give parser games a resurgence. Exactly. The current AI chat things are definitely getting there, so that people are experimenting with it. Corey just listened to the game
The game
developers.
design, yeah.
Game,
There's the top secret game designers workshop that's specifically oriented for narrative game designers, and has a lot of people from different companies and games. But we had a little online get together a couple weeks ago, and the topic was AI in gaming and how it could be used. And people were talking about both artwork and as writing assistance. And the general feeling was that the AI does not have the talent of a good writer, and it's always going to be kind of nonsensical and kind of not there. But that it's really good as a thing that can kind of be a starter. It's good for marketing materials.
I think it could be good for role playing games if and basically it has to tap into it understands the question. And therefore, it can give the pre-scripted answer as long as it isn't having to, construct the answers out of whole cloth.
There's an AI tool that was our holy grail. We had someone at Sierra, Mark Wilden, develop a tool called Composer. No, it wasn't Composer. What was it called back then? It was called the Message Editor.
Message Editor.
Mark developed a message editor that Lori used to write all of the dialogue in Quest for Glory 2 and 3, and then Frank Kane upgraded that. He was the Macintosh programmer at Sierra, but he also developed a more advanced tool that let Lori structure conversations and stuff for Quest for Glory 4 and 5. And
5.
This for 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Then Rob, what's Rob's last name? Rob Eisenberg. Yeah, I think it's Rob Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Rob Eisenberg created a thing for us called Composer.
So we kept insisting that our games work with this kind of behavior.
Yeah, we needed that kind of tool to so that we could take the writing would not be in the actual game code, so the programmers didn't have to. If a programmer changed something, it would not affect Lori's writing.
Right.
But
mostly it was so that I could actually write it and control when it was being used.
We got a link, which I don't have in front of me, to an online tool that is basically an AI-assisted writing tool that allows you to create dialogue and scripts for games or for, telescripts and, films and TV and so on that lets you do exactly what we were trying to do all along with Composer and the Message Editor, of basically help us structure things that would let us do message trees and that would converge back in and all the things you need to do for adventure games, which doing that well, it's very easy to get lost. Mm-hmm. So having a good tool for it is helpful.
Yes. Let's see. The School for Heroes website was very nice and nostalgic. Do you ever plan on bringing it and the forums back?
No.
No. The forums got lost. The original theschoolforheroes.com. Was that the original?
No, that was the second one.
Oh, so you want to be a hero, or how to be a hero?
Howtobeahero.com.
Yes, that one I didn't have the license to. I mean, somebody else made this.
We had a developer up in Toronto that we lost communication with.
And they had the rights to it and the database, and we lost it all.
So we redid it, and I actually learned a little PHP and stuff.
Yes,
and
we recreated
the School for Heroes.
Yeah, but it was too labor intensive.
And the problem with the forums was that same problem that Christina had with the Quest for More Glory forums, is that spammers and scammers started getting in there.
Yeah.
And we managed to eliminate most of the scam messages, but people were using bots to create accounts in the forum, and it was getting to the point where they were creating hundreds of new accounts a day and getting up into the thousands, and we just couldn't keep up with it. So we had to kill the forums because there were too many bad actors.
Yes, or at least bad robots.
Bad robot.
Yeah. This might be a basic question, sorry, but was Quest for Glory EGA the first open world RPG type game? I feel it was really unique at the time, like day-night cycles, living world, can go anywhere. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah, no, the first ones were really the Ultima games.
Yeah.
after Lord British, Richard Garriott did, let's see, on Calderon, but that's a character out of Richard's game. I can't remember the first game, but anyway, so he did a couple games in high school and then came up with Ultima 1, and then Ultima 2 was Sierra Online's first role-playing game. And then they had a contractual disagreement, and Lord British went off and formed his own company, Origin Systems. And Sierra did the Wrath of Denethanor, but all those Ultima games are all open world, where you go around a huge set of maps and environments.
Yeah, it came out of the role-playing specific world where we wanted to, and plus we wanted to create the verisimilitude that you were alive in this world. So therefore we had to have the day-night cycles and the living world, and let you go so that you could just enjoy the game without having unrealistic restrictions.
And then our maps and stuff, of course, were based on and similar to the other Quest games from Sierra.
They weren't based on, because I had no idea what they were
Yeah,
like.
we did. We looked at maps for King's Quest and so on, and based on that idea, we made the original map on graph paper for Heroes Quest.
But I never got to
We
see.
did.
I never got to see them because they were Sierras, and we couldn't
Well, I
see
had.
them. Well, you did.
They had it posted up in the boardroom. You saw it. Maybe that was later.
That was later. Yeah. So we had to reinvent this as it was just locations and a graph. What are those things where you have connections and things like that, and you
It's a graph.
diagrams, the kind where you had. Oh, never mind.
It's a graph. They're called a graph.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So when Ron made Maniac Mansion, characters that died simply stayed deaf. That was that was one of his first. And when he came, it was when he was playing one of the King's Quest games with his wife. It was his it was Laura Bow.
That's much later.
The first one.
First one, Colonel's Bequest.
Colonel's Bequest. He was playing. His wife was playing Colonel's Bequest, and the first time that her character died, she threw up her hands and didn't want to play the game
Said,
again.
okay, that's it.
Yeah, and that is where he realized just how
Inexperienced players come into this, and they're not willing to just die over and over again.
and that it was taking people out of the game, and that's where he came up with his theory of why there should be no deaths in games, and that's why he created the Monkey Island series with no deaths.
But to answer Phantom Beaver's question, really, I just said no. But the reason for not bringing back the website is that it was extremely time intensive.
I said it was labor intensive.
Labor intensive.
Yes.
So Lori was role playing all of the professors there. Now
answering all the fan letters.
So we could have a website like that if we had a whole group of fan volunteers that were representing the teachers and so on.
That was kind of what the forums were doing. It was all fan play.
So we could do that as a distributed thing, but we're not. We don't really have the competency or the capability to manage a distributed thing, and you could get petty tyrants in there, or the ongoing problem with scientific fiction conventions and so on is you get volunteers who start taking their position too seriously, and they're God and they have power and they abuse it.
Yeah. So we are not probably ever.
And some of them might not be as good a writer as Lori, although probably most of them are better.
Who knows? Bashar says, but if it doesn't have death, can you really call it a Sierra adventure game? Probably not. It's a Lucas art game if it doesn't have death, yes.
So what I was getting into is when Ken Williams brought us in, he wanted somebody to make an Ultima-style role-playing game, and I, having worked with SCI before we started Heroes Quest, said, your system is not good for doing an Ultima-style game, but it's awesome for what you do, which are graphic adventures. And graphic adventures are a whole lot like the kind of tabletop role-playing we did.
Yeah, so we could easily adjust to doing it.
So we said, we'll give you real role-playing. We'll give you tabletop role-playing on the computer using your SCI engine. And that's really what Heroes Quest and all of our games have been designed to do.
finding all the death scenes in the Colonel's Bequest was actually kind of amusing, and some of the last punny statements in them made me laugh. That Laura could sit in the swing and break it was funny too. Like, oops, quick look around to see if anyone saw her break Dijon property. Yeah, there is a... I mean,
is that like breaking the third wall?
Yeah, it is like breaking the third wall. Sierra games have that whole fourth wall. But,
fourth wall.
Yeah. Oh well, it's the third wall. She broke something. Any rate, Sierra games do have a kind of style that is unique, and nobody ever, to this day, does. It's a unique style that I don't think anybody's going to really capture as well.
And, as it happened, all of the different, very different Sierra designers independently decided to put puns and jokes in their games. And part of that is because they had programmers that moved around from game to game.
The programmers really ruled
like
the
Bob Fishbach, who helped us get started on Heroes Quest, had previously worked on Police Quest. Yeah. And maybe on King's Quest, I'm not sure.
I don't know. But he went on to work on the... Christy Marks games.
Yeah, so he worked on Longbow and Camelot. Yeah. So you did have some common people putting in the puns, but it was also the real reason for having humors in the games is because of the parser. The parsers, the amount of stuff that we could handle in the parser was so minimal, and there were so many different things you could type and so few things that actually got handled, that instead of making it frustrating for players, we made jokes. So that they would kind of relieve the tension of the game doesn't understand you. Well, okay, well, at least it doesn't understand me, and it's funny.
Arlo says the parser is the reason I was always literate and could type. At 10 years old, the other kids couldn't believe I knew how to type. Well, yes, anybody who played those games in those era had to learn really quickly. And Phantom Beaver says, as a child, text parsers were a curse and unfair for people who didn't speak English as a first language. But as an adult, it does have its charm. However, point and click is the definitive way to adventure. Here we have both sides of the story.
So yes, we have people that told us they learned English by playing our games and by having to figure out how words were spelled and stuff. And other people that were frustrated because they couldn't figure out what they were supposed to type.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. We used to share the discs as there was no shop for games in our area, so we lived in a bubble.
It was very common. I mean, some people shared discs because they didn't have enough money to buy the games, and some people did it because they couldn't get the games.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fans behind the Iron Curtain where it was illegal to sell these computers or games. Because
Bill says, so the problem is not the parser's processing, but the game's limited vocabulary. Exactly.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, so a good vocabulary can be the solution. I've heard there's a fundamental problem with adding verbs to the parser. True or false?
Mostly false. Okay, so you can add vocabulary, it eats up memory. And remember, we were on 64K of memory on these early games. Not megabytes, kilobytes. And so it's very tight on memory, but you could have quite a few verbs and nouns and synonyms. But the problem is you still had to, as you had puzzles in the games and you had to have solutions, programmers had to program in and designers had to come up with what stuff would be handled. So what we did for Quest for Glory is we handled look at everywhere. We handled talk to a certain extent. We handled ask about as much as we could. And then we tried to have, for things you could ask about, all the topics that had come up in the game. But you couldn't ask about artichokes because there were no artichokes in the game.
And those things were programmed in a room. They weren't programmed universally at the time.
The defaults were programmed game-wide.
Right.
But those were mostly error handling for...
Yeah.
Not, the room didn't understand it, but mostly each room in the game, had its own programming for what things it understood. Yeah. So climb the tree. Okay, that's not too interesting inside town where there are no trees.
Right. So, but that's prior to having having the word processor programs that we used, which could have handled things.
Oh, I mean like message editor.
Yeah. Message editor.
Well, they can handle it to a limited extent.
Yeah.
So again, we had some things that were handled globally, but many things are handled only by the room or only by a character.
Yes. David TKI is talking about Richard Aronson again with the dreaded gazebo and the dreaded Cedric. Yes, Richard Aronson is therefore
Dreaded.
The dreaded Richard Aronson. And since
I don't think he ever had dreadlocks. He did have very long hair for a while.
And since 2000, the dreaded gazebo has its own Munchkin card. Awesome.
That is true, in the game Munchkin.
Yes.
Board game Munchkin.
AI is ultimately always derivative. And AI is how you can create a program that can beat data. Okay. Is the message editor today part of the SCI engine that fans use to make fan games?
No, it's standalone.
It was standalone, yes.
The output from it, the .me files, are imported for the game, but figuring out how to generate a .me file, not so easy.
Yeah.
In a sense, the message editor was just a glorified spreadsheet.
Yes.
It was like a very special purpose spreadsheet that had a set format.
Yeah.
Things. And
when we... verb, whatever it was attached to.
Yeah, who you're talking to, and a sequence, so you could have multiple things in sequence, and a case, so that maybe some messages would only apply if certain tags were set in the game.
So think of that. That's how it was originally designed, and it got much more sophisticated as we went along.
But when we first proposed Hero U, we did that because of Andrew Gold something.
Golding? No,
Andrew Golding. Yeah, something like Andrew Golding in Australia volunteered to help us make the game, and he had previously done a couple of games. He did Jolly Rover, which is an adventure game with dogs.
Which is
all
Monkey Island with dogs.
Monkey Island with dogs. And had done a very nice puzzle game called MacGuffin's Curse. But he did everything with Excel spreadsheets. And so, if we had continued to work with him, we probably would have put everything in Excel.
But since we didn't, we had somebody create the very sophisticated, more than sophisticated message editor. Yes. Let's see.
And we originally, thought of it as a visual tool that would kind of show, a directed graph.
I just wanted to get my whole message editor.
Well, we worked with a tool like that on the Bolt Riley game.
Right, but it wasn't very good.
And it basically let you draw a spaghetti-like network of connections between things. The problem is with the depth that Laurie writes into these games, those networks get very large very quickly, and not much of it fits on a screen. So it's really hard to navigate.
Yeah. AI would work for a parser. It's just mapping to a limited set.
What generative AI can do, like ChatGPT, is actually generate on the fly answers and things you type in.
But if you give it a database, which is the database of the game, and it's not pulling from
random
thin air,
world,
then you might be able to do it. For a generative side, having a human in the mix is required. One project I'm working on is using AI for expanding information. Good, yeah. And Jablik. Personally, I love tying in CR games and seeing all the ways it can happen. And that's why some of our games have some of those deaths. I mean, honestly, I recognized right away when I played Leisure Suit Larry. I did not play any of these games extensively, but that whole death in the Circle K, the
Grotesque Gulp,
Grotesque Gulp, that whole sequence in that room. Where you had all sorts of deaths and you had all sorts of... I saw where that is... You wanted to find out how to kill
all the different ways you can die, yeah.
Yes. It is a game. It isn't a role-playing game, but it's a game. And so therefore...
The Grotesque Gulp was one of the funniest dings on the whole adventure game genre, is the idea that you have this... I don't know what it was, 8 quarts or so soda, and that you just put it in your pocket.
Yes. Yes. So therefore, it was that kind of...
Made fun of this style of game.
That whole kind of aha moment that it required. Plus, it was such a ding on reality, and I could see where that was appealing. So we went out of our way to have certain deaths in Quest for Glory to allow a player to die in it, doing really stupid things, because then it was a choice on the player's part. Yes.
And so Colossal, no, it wasn't Colossal Grave, it was Zork. You would type in FU, and it would say, well, Fubar would bletch to you, and players would go, really? Okay, and those were all common imitation curse words that they used at MIT. And it was hard to spot in the database because there is a bar of something in the game, so bar was already in the vocabulary.
Yeah.
And if you just type bar out of context, it would give you Fubar and bletch to you, and people thought that was really hilarious because how could a computer be that creative?
Navi says
it wasn't. People wrote it.
Navi says Disco Elysium did a really good job of entertaining without dying, as did Hero U.
We have heard many good things about Disco Elysium from people on Discord and our fans. So probably, I own the game but have never played it. You should probably go out and look at it because a lot of people say a lot of good things about it.
And so did Hero U. Hero U had no deaths, had minimal deaths, because we were mostly told we should have minimal deaths to sell to the German audience.
Yeah, if you get defeated in combat in the catacombs or whatever, you just get sent back to the infirmary.
Right. There are only a couple of permadeaths in that game, and that's because...
Did he kick you out of school?
Yeah, well, no, permadeaths. You become a wraith. That's a kind of permadeath. Okay, fine. So, but mostly we avoided it because we were told that the European audience does not care for having combat and dying in games, so we avoided it. Getting lost in the desert in Quest for Glory 2 was legit anxiety-inducing. Yeah. Maybe a little bit too much. Yes, was it fun? That's
Same thing with the alleyways in Quest for Glory 2. Some people love trying to figure out how to get through them and so on. Other people hated it. And particularly the people who hated it were the ones that didn't buy the game and didn't have the map.
And Brainiac says, was playing Poobah for a bit. He had clocked Thomas on a grand Poobah in the last hand. I folded a Poobah, and I was right.
There you go.
There you go. Now that's well written. Honestly, I'll,
and
if you could tell that he had a grand Poobah, then that's,
And that was partly a collaboration between us and the developers, as the programmers that put together Poobah came up with their own ideas for things. And one of them is, I'd originally had would generate your hand as, a number from 1 to 100 or whatever, and then would translate that into the name of the hand. And programmer Judy came up with the idea of simplifying that. Well, we had the idea of having names for all the hands, but she said, what if you make it so that it's impossible for two people to have the same hand?
Which was brilliant, It
was absolutely brilliant. And the idea is that basically if both of you, if one of you had a 75 and the other one rolled a 76, instead of giving you both different variations on, Poobah or whatever that was, one of you got promoted, the 76 would be promoted to have a grand Poobah. And so we made it so that no two people around the table ever had the same named hand. There were 15 possible names, so there was, only 7 people at the table, so you could always do that.
Let's see. See.
But I was going to say it was also partly based on a Commodore PET game that fit in 8K of memory that was Liar's Poker, and that you actually had facial expressions of the characters that after you played for a while, you learned to read that Granny always bluffed. If she was smiling, that meant she didn't have anything.
Yeah, so that was our basics for the Poobah game, really. Going with that concept of giving verbal cues that you could actually play the game by judging the characters rather than what cards you get. And so
you have some of the characters are very straightforward and always have what they say they have, and other ones, love to bluff and rarely have what they say they have.
And honestly, it's knowing when to hold them and when to fold them. And we were basically teaching you basic poker. Principles, yes.
Because I worked for a poker company, online poker company for a while, and that's one of the things I had to learn in playing poker is that the best play in poker is to fold.
Yeah.
Fold early and often.
Nobby says, I couldn't afford anything in Hero U without Poobah. Killing rats just wasn't worth it. Well, no. It really
Yeah, so
wasn't.
we turned our players into gamblers.
Yeah. Brainiac says, I shall continue to hold out hope for Wizard's Way. Realistic hope, but still hope, yes. Yeah.
Mind,
realistic yes, hope. Yes. Yeah, but, well, I would really love to see it, too. I have the ideas. I know where I want to go with it.
Yeah, we just need to have an investor come along that wants to invest $5 or $10 million and has no interest in profiting from it.
Yeah, and...
Those are kind of rare, though.
Yeah. I mean, I love that rich world type of thing, with so many layers in that.
And we did get a last-second investor in Rogue to Redemption, who came in with a substantial piece of change and was hoping to profit from it, but he was a Quest for Glory fan,
and so he was our hero. Yeah.
Yeah, he became our hero.
Is Fenris Erasmus's familiar, or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
They'll never tell.
Oh, the answer is yes.
I know Shadows of Darkness is often associated with Halloween, but for me, it's a Valentine's game because most of the quests involve the theme of love in some shape or form. Yes, happy Valentine's Day to you both.
Ah, thank you, Lashar, and you're right.
Yes, it is. It is a kind of a Valentine's Day. It's set in, in a Mordavian, haunted house venue. But, yeah. The desert was super fun, though. Finding the whirling dervish was a sweet relief. Exactly, yeah. And Brainiac says, yeah, that's why my error at MagFest stung so bad. A rare case when I shouldn't have folded and went against the math because of fear.
Ah.
Yeah, and just...
Well, that was the other thing I learned from playing both tournament bridge and tournament poker, is that, you basically have to get over the terror of losing. And that's a common thing, is that, studies have shown that gaining $100 or losing $100 feels much more painful than the joy of gaining 100.
Right.
And you actually need somewhere between 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 before the gain feels bigger than the lose.
All of us are programmed with risk avoidance, which is probably how we survive, and so therefore it hurts more to lose than than to gain.
So the great poker and bridge players, go for those 55% chances, and if they lose, they say, "Oh well, there will be another game."
Yeah. And Starter asks, "Is it true that traditionally the marketing costs and the development costs for a game were about 1 to 1?"
We've read that about other, big games that, things like your Sony PlayStation games and so on. They spend about as much on marketing as they do on development.
Yes.
That was never the case for anything we did.
Never. Sierra did not. But, I mean, what we didn't actually know, but we know that some of the money went into end caps because we learned this after the fact.
Yeah, when we did Shannara, we learned that we were a little delayed on, and we ended up having to delay the game past Christmas. And, of course, we knew that delaying game past Christmas is really bad for sales. But what we didn't know was that the marketing director had arranged for end caps in stores like Babbage's and Electronics Boutique and stuff like that. And that's where you see one kind of at the end of a row, they have a display for a particular game. And those cost a fortune. Those cost like $100,000 or more to arrange, and they are for a particular week. And if your game is not in the store during that week,
the money's thrown away.
They keep the money, and you don't get your end cap. So because we were delayed, they lost all the co-marketing funds. The person we talked to at Sierra said, "Yeah, there's this thing called co-marketing, and that's a euphemism for bribery."
Yes.
That they bribe distributors and they bribe the store representatives to give extra attention to your games.
Yes. Let's see. And Phantom Beaver says, I think that's the case for any kind of product these days, especially entertainment, as the competition is insane. And if you don't have to reach, yay, thank you, don't have reach, you won't see the numbers. And we can attest to that.
Now, indie games are generally an exception. And if you look at like Wajidai games with Dave Gilbert, I don't think he spends that much on promotion, but because he has a large body of similar type games, that he gets the attention from press and websites and Let's Play and so on. That when a new one comes out, it's likely to get some news. And I don't know how much he actually spends on marketing.
Yeah.
But he gets a lot of viral marketing.
Yeah.
And we could do that too, but we don't have 10 or 15 or 20 relatively recent games for people to look at. And only a certain percentage of the critics and so on actually have memories going back to the 1990s.
Yeah. Valiant Cheese came by. Hi, we can't hang around, but I wanted to swing by and say hi, and we'll say hi right back at you. And Valiant Cheese should well know about the marketing stuff. Can be brutal with this.
Valiant Cheese is a developer and does itch.io and has several very innovative games there, such as Hive Time. And what's your recent game, Valiant Cheese? Yeah, you have a new one up there, I know.
Valiant Cheese says, I think Watch It Eye benefits a lot from having an established audience and fulfilling demand for a dead genre. Yes.
Which is definitely not the case, but it's the narrative that drives a lot of popular perception of media coverage.
True.
Adventure games are dead. Yep.
And have you thought of collaborating with Watch It Eye for a game? Would that even be a possibility?
I talked to Dave about that, and he was actually initially interested, but he is doing some other stuff, so he's collaborating on a vampire game that what is it called? Oh, I forget the title. That I'm actually backed on Kickstarter, and he said basically the ones that he's already doing take up all his time, and he wants to make his own game. So,
and but we did work with him directly for our voice recording, which we did for Tilly's Tale.
Yeah, he was the what'd you call it? The producer.
He was the producer on
the
this.
director. He was the director.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am searching.
Let's see, and current Valiant Cheese's current project is Fossil. Most recently
Nighthawks
is Bat Egg. Fossil Sweeper. Oh, okay, fair. Nighthawks, I believe. Yes, you are correct.
There we go. There's our desktop. So Nighthawks, the vampire RPG, was on Kickstarter, and it is created by Dave Gilbert, Watch It Eye Game. But the actual person, the actual writer.
Okay, so he got the.
As I was trying to get down to was a well-known game reviewer turned game developer, Richard Cobbett.
Oh, that's Richard Cobbett.
Yeah, Richard Cobbett was one of the major writers for Rock Paper Shotgun.
He was one of our great fans for having, in media. He would write us great reviews.
Yeah. So he had a series called Games That Made Me, and I think it was Quest for Glory 4. He said was one of the games that was a perfect game. So that felt good.
Yes.
And then he talked about Quest for Glory 4.5, which was a fan remake, and said just not worth playing. So anyway, Nighthawks looks like an interesting game, and that is one that has carefully followed our model for modern indie adventure games of being several years late.
Yeah.
Estimated delivery, May 2020.
Okay.
And this is February of 2024, and they're working on it.
Good. I really look forward. I like the art style they've shown in here.
Yeah.
And the concept.
And, yeah, a lot of things they're doing with it. So it'll probably be a great game, but who knows when it'll release, just as with our own games. Unfortunately, we can't predict when our games will be released.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to make indie games on low budgets.
Yeah.
They reached, on Kickstarter, they got $136,000 with a $125,000 goal on almost 4,000 backers. In comparison to which we got $400,000, $409,000 on a $400,000 goal on our Kickstarter out of 6,000 backers for Hero U Road to Redemption. And in fact, we failed. We failed at our Kickstarter. We got over the 400,000 mark because several friends of ours volunteered to put money into the game and came in and bumped up the number to get over 400. But at 375, with the way Kickstarter works, you get 0.
Yep.
So we came very close to that.
Brainiac says, "Oh, don't show me Kickstarter now. Harlow Hero and I will go off about one that's about to end."
Okay, well, tell us about a project that's about to end on
Yeah,
Kickstarter.
Game dev takes a long time. It does.
Is there a Gargoyles Kickstarter? Where have you been? And OSU says Gargoyle Collections. Let's see what that looks like before we get up.
Yes. Long out of print. Long out of print.
Gargoyles Comics featuring stories by Greg Weisman.
Now, I watched cartoons, but this was a little out of my era. I did not see the Gargoyle cartoons, and I understand they're on Disney Plus, so I'll have to make a point of watching.
Now, this is the way Kickstarter is supposed to work.
Look, money just went in. Yes.
This is the way Kickstarter is supposed to work, is they brought this project up with a goal of $50,000, and they're currently up to $720,000. With only 4,600 backers, but obviously each of them putting in about $150.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
That's a very, and still 53 to go.
That means this is to get anything useful.
Diamond Entertainment, yep.
$15 for that.
Yeah, for one gold foil.
They're really pretty cheap.
35, but yeah, if you want the whole collection, it probably is, to the $100 or more.
3 hardcover books for $35. Oh no.
That sounds like
that's undercharging.
That's completely wrong.
Yeah. That does not very realistic.
All right, if it's one hardcover that collects 6 issues, and if they charge for shipping separately.
Yes, they will have to do that.
Because shipping is the problem. Okay, they can make a hardcover book and make a profit on 35, but they're not making it. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, this is kind of scary. You have the economics of Kickstarter are really, really scary.
Yeah, back in our day, it was generally assumed that shipping was included, and in the course of the 5.5 years that it took us to make Hero You Road to Redemption, shipping costs tripled. Yeah. So we had estimated a certain amount for shipping costs, and suddenly it became a major part of our budget.
So Awan asks, I remember back in the 90s, the magazine saying that Quest for Glory 3 was called Shadows of Darkness, and I wondered if that was a typo or if it was pushed to 4 later on.
It's complicated. So yes, at the end of Quest for Glory 2, we announced Quest for Glory 3 Shadows of Darkness as the next game. And up until then, our first 2 games, all of 2 games were in 2 consecutive years. And we thought that would continue and that the next year we would come out with Quest for Glory 3. But the normal Sierra strategy was to do games in a series every 2 years. So Ken Williams decided, got off on an educational game kick, and we each did an educational game the following year. And we then said, 2 years between games, and Shadows of Darkness was designed to be really, terrifying and paranoid and you're got no friends and that sort of thing. We said, maybe we need something to ease you into that. And in hindsight, no, we didn't. But the second thing that happened was Ellen Guan Beeman was working with us and met me in the hallway and said, I know what your next game is going to be. It's going to be Rakisha's story. And I said, oh, yeah, you called it. And so we made Quest for Glory 3 in between.
Yeah, that's the short story of that.
So anyway, so we moved Quest for Glory 4, Shadows of Darkness. Shadows of Darkness back to Quest for Glory 4.
Okay, so $35 is the 6-issue hardcover, no shipping. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That's good. And there are several volumes to make up the complete set. Okay, that'll add up too. And Valiant says, I've talked to so many devs who aimed to just break even on most of their rewards and then didn't have the money left over for development. He actually did the math.
I did some math.
He did the math coming in of
course,
we could afford to have how much of that percentage we had to put away for the rewards we were offering.
Now, the fantasy math, first of all, I've been told a couple of times you can't do a Kickstarter for $400,000 minimum goal. $20,000 is a good one for an indie. And I said, yeah, but we don't want to be committed to making a game if we only have $20,000 in the door.
We can't make the game if we don't have
so $400,000 seemed like it would be enough, except that I was thinking about how much money I made when I first started working for Sierra. I was getting about $12 an hour or something like that, and later got raised to $15 an hour. So I figured we could pay our developers $15 an hour and I hadn't thought about inflation and the fact that we're 20 years later or 30 years later.
Where math was off, but it doesn't mean we didn't calculate it in.
And I did not predict that shipping costs would triple in the course of a few years.
Yeah. And
so stuff like that. Was when our original volunteer developer came back, and I had assumed he'd work for maybe $25 an hour, and he wanted $80 an hour, Australian, $50 US. And we said, well, unfortunately, if we do that, our entire budget goes to you, and we don't have any art in the game.
Yeah.
So the numbers just don't work out.
Brainiac says, Valiant Cheese points out that for these, they're not producing anything but the rewards, and that does make a difference, but it's still $35 for one book is not that, when it's a limited edition, there's no room for profit in there, really. It's going to cost about that much to create this. Probably, maybe it'll cost them $10, to manufacture that if they get any numbers.
So if you look back at the magic year 2012, when multiple Sierra developers were putting up their Kickstarters, and you compare our Kickstarter for Hero U Road to Redemption with Al Lone Rewind or Rewind Entertainment, something like that, Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded, the difference is that Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded was Leisure Suit Larry 1 spiffed up a little bit. And so Al did not have to sit there for months of work designing and rewriting the game. He got had a name in my tongue a second ago. Who was our writer for Hero U that up in New York?
Josh?
Yeah, Josh Mandel. Yeah, Josh Mandel to do a lot of the writing for him. And Josh actually got carried away and put in many, many more messages than in the original game. But the basic game was the same, which is new artwork. And so that was something you could predict the costs of a little more. With ours doing an entirely new game and a new series, which we did because we couldn't get the rights for Quest for Glory from Sierra, even if we wanted to do another Quest for Glory, that we had to write a new game from scratch, had to design the whole game.
Yeah, we certainly underestimated.
We bit off far more than we could chew.
Yes, but we did chew.
We chewed it.
We chewed it.
And we masticated for 5 years.
Yes. Let's see.
I don't think we're going to get to Heroes Quest, by the way.
No, the doozy.
It was an hour ago I was about to start.
The doozy are the limited edition hardcovers, oversized gold leaf, and come in their own chest.
Context, Gargoyles.
By Gargoyles. $500 a pop. Wow. And Arlo says he's trying to sell this like it's hard to find. Maybe 10 years ago I collected all the old Marvel's Gargoyle comics just by buying them for like 50 cents, 58 cents on random online bookstores. Fun, yes.
Okay.
So yes, if you're non-US, shipping charges are eye-watering. Exactly. Unbelievable. That's why we really can't afford to sell those meeps that we have.
Well, the company we're talking about working with on Jason Michael's Questing for Glory book, which he wrote with extensive input from me and some from Laurie, that is the game that out of the UK that does art books for various games and does nice hardcover editions and so on. So shipping out of the UK to the US would be expensive, except what they'll do is they'll find a printer in the US to do the...
Which is the right way to do this.
Yeah.
And we, obviously that's why you need a good company that has connections.
It's also why you need the scale. Mm-hmm. That if you are selling tens of thousands of copies, then you can afford to have distribution out of multiple points. And so that's like working with Amazon Publishing. Amazon will sell your product all around the world, and they will actually find printers in different countries to do that. So that, and they have distribution warehouses all around the world. But in return, they'll take a big cut of it.
Arlo says, I love Gargoyles because it introduced me to medieval Scottish history. I own 2 antique leaves from the first edition of Holinshed's Chronicles about Macbeth.
Wow.
Jeez.
As the page introduced them, I paid maybe $400 for both of them today.
Wow.
Total. I'm not paying $500 for Gargoyles comics.
That's unbelievable.
Especially since the Gargoyles comics are just a derivative of the Gargoyles television show.
Yeah. They're out of print and never collected as these will be. Yes, but $500? Jeez. And I feel like Greg has definitely had a facelift.
But it's a deep, dark secret that Disney actually has more fans than Quest for Glory.
Yeah, unfortunately. So.
Well, and part of that is what I was talking about, Wajidai. Disney has made many, many movies, television shows, comics, etc., toys, and as a result, they have, saturated people's consciousness with all things Disney, theme parks, and we went to Disneyland and California Adventure several times last year because they're not too far from us. But
right.
The point is that if you have enough products out there, you have more mind share.
Yes. Other than the actual first editions, I don't care much about format. Point is the stories, yes. I got to think that my original Marvels would be worth more than any reprint, special edition, whatever. Yeah, well, we actually... comics are a terrible market too, all in all.
Especially the 1980s type 1980s and 1990s comics were so overprinted. They made so many copies that they have almost no value.
Yes.
We had dozens, maybe hundreds of boxes of comics that we inherited from our friend and roommate Jim when we had to move suddenly out of Ahwahnee, and we basically ended up giving them all away. And that was because we sold a very few things. We probably could have sold more, but we had a comics collector come in and evaluate the collection. He basically came up with about 2 boxes of stuff that were worth reselling. Said everything else has no value because it was produced in such quantities.
Bowser says, if the crowdfunding effort is intended to bring a product to mass market, offering rewards at the margin makes sense. If it gives you the capital to get the project started, yes.
Well, the theory on putting a game on Kickstarter is Kickstarter's not supposed to make you a profit on the game. It is supposed to give you the funds to develop the game, and then when you put it on the market, you sell it, and you make a profit.
Yes.
And we discovered is that the market at that point was Steam, and to a lesser extent GOG, but mostly Steam, and that with a heavily curated Steam of 2012, games sold 100,000 units, indie games. And when they took away the curation and said anybody can put a game on Steam, it went down from 100,000 to 50 to 20 to 5 to 2,000 copies. And I think somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 copies is the average sales for an indie game on Steam now. Yeah. And if you sell the game at, a lot of people say $20 is too much for a game. It should be $5. But even at $20, if you only sell a couple, 1,000 copies, you make $14,000 on the game, and that does not pay for development of a game that costs $500,000 or $1 million to develop.
No.
So Kickstarter helps with the development, but it doesn't pay all the development costs.
And Arlo Hero says, "Oh man, we can't hit on underage girls for Valentine's Day." Aren't we back at the...
And OSU Brainiac says debatable.
Ah, yeah.
Which might or might not have been
either of those events, yes,
but that's okay. It was funny there.
Uh-huh.
No, don't hit on underage girls. You get in trouble.
Yes, even if they're centaurs.
It's wrong. And it's wrong.
If they're centaurs. Unless you don't realize they're underage, in which case it's still wrong, but it's not your fault. Yes. And Dynamite does this a lot for various specialty items and productions. I'm assuming it's showing market size more than anything else, possibly. Let's see. And I noticed one of the original Marvels has a letter from a girl from Humacao, the town in Puerto Rico where my grandmother was born. Can't tell whether that's Tiana.
I think it's Bitmap Games is the country in the UK that does the art of point-and-click adventures and so on.
Let's see, and they're still talking about the Kickstarter on this thing, and Kickstarters are notorious for being late, sometimes by years, and after the products are already available for sale at cons too.
OSU Brainiac says a lot of people are getting cranky over a Disney property being kickstarted. I'm pretty sure this is all
Yeah.
Dynamite's idea, not Disney's,
Yeah,
but it's licensed from Disney.
right.
Um,
That's
so-
true, but Disney wouldn't do it because it's not profit margin enough.
yeah, and
And so, yeah, I think it's Dynamite that will be getting the profit, and Disney will just siphon off what their percentage.
but just as AAA games get the multi-million-dollar marketing budgets and most of the sales, Kickstarter, was originally designed for small creative projects, and when big corporations get in there, they siphon off an awful lot of the Kickstarter money that might otherwise go to multiple small products.
Let's see, and they're still going on that. And the Fairy Quest books by Paul Jenkins and some of the other books were nightmares for getting the Kickstarter rewards. Some of them still have to be sent to backers when they've been for sale at cons for years. Yeah, well, that's it's buyer beware on Kickstarter because you're dealing with people that
When you support a product on Kickstarter, you are not buying the product.
Yeah.
You are contributing towards the
even though it
development and or
says
publishing.
that's what you're buying there.
Yeah, you might get it.
Yeah, and as it is, we have several rewards that we have not given out from the Kickstarter we had for Tilly's game and Ifeo's game. So
Yeah, and
we
I just realized that recently when I got a message on Facebook or
Yeah.
somewhere that said that they still hadn't gotten their MEEP, and the reason is that we said, okay, let's do, because shipping is so expensive, we don't want to do multiple shipments. But independently, Lori came up with the thought that since we're doing Tilly's Tale and Ifeo's Adventure games, that we would make, really cute to have a flip book that had one story on one side and the other story if you flipped it around, and that the disc, we could certainly fit both games in one DVD.
Well, there was going to be one game at the beginning, so
Yeah.
that's why all of the merchandise was designed for it to be one game. As
And
opposed
so
to
when
two
it became
games.
2 games, and we said we would still give people both games,
Right.
which maybe we should actually revisit. Just say, well, let's
they're
give
going to get the other game.
if we don't revisit it.
There's no point in not giving them.
But
the
anyway,
other game, but
so we could print physical stuff and send it all. So my revised thought is, okay, maybe all the older stuff like the boxed editions of Hero Road to Redemption that people ordered and the MEEPs, we could ship today.
yes, and we should.
And it's just a question of whether we need to send 3 boxes to one address at, $40 a box if we're shipping to Australia, or $50 now, I think.
Yeah, so we still have things we need to give away. And we still have another box of the MEEPs that we are not currently giving away. And we still don't have
Well, I
a
don't know.
store
We may
yet.
owe enough of them that we
Right.
we have fewer than we think.
Phantom Beaver says, Kickstarter is risky, which is why I consider myself quite lucky. Of the 6 projects I have backed, 5 have worked out perfectly, and the 6th one is Quest for Infinity, which did deliver a game. However, I still haven't received my big box for it. Oh, that's too bad.
And that's where we are with Tilly's Tale. Anyone who
Right.
ordered a big box of Tilly's Tale doesn't have it.
Well, yes, because we don't actually.
We haven't made
have
it.
We have the design for it. We have the box design.
But it is designed to be a box that contains both Tilly's Tale and Ifeo's Adventure.
And I thought the Quest for Infinity game came out a long time ago too, like years. Well, so
Well, they also had Kickstarters for the
Tilly's
sequels
Tale
to that.
now. Tilly's Tale came out a year ago or 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, no, Tilly's Tale came out in 2023.
Okay. So that was
Less than a year ago.
just last year. It's only a year old. Okay. Shippings are another. Yes, we know why Quest for Infinity, because Steve went through another kidney transplant
Quest for Glory Infinity
and
is
another
Stephen
failure.
Alexander.
Yes, Stephen Alexander lost a kidney and he lost his transplant now. So he's been going through all sorts
Hell.
of
He's been going through hell.
Yes. So yes. Wow, close to a year for Tilly's Tale. Yes, it is. Exactly.
And it came out at a very awkward time, just around the time my mother died. So we've been a little distracted this last year. We're still dealing with that.
He actually offered to do something special for my rewards, and I flat out told him that I'm officially fine being the last person to get delivered to as a result without complaint. Well, that's very sweet of you. Yes, yes. And sorry for your loss. Yes. Well, thank you, Valiant Cheese.
Yeah, the biggest backers are usually the most understanding because they're the people that are really care about you as a person, not just about the product. My watch says I haven't walked enough in the last hour.
Well, I don't know why.
I kind of need to go, but
I see.
I got 40 minutes to go. We'll make it, maybe.
Yeah, or less.
I drank a whole cup of tea here.
Oh, well. Your cup of tea versus my cup of tea, yes. Let's see. So, at any rate,
well, we're done. We're out of messages.
I guess so. So, therefore, we have to play the game.
Quick, before new message. Oh, no, another message.
I need to head off for Blender practice. Okay. Thanks for streaming and chatting, everybody. Have a great day. Cup of tea. Thank you very much, Valiant, for showing up.
So, the classic line in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy adventure game is the reproducer unit. What do they call it in Star Trek? The thing
I've lost total.
Thing that makes tea.
Okay, fine.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The
replicator.
The replicator. So the replicator made something was almost, but not quite, entirely unlike tea.
Yeah,
that's that's kind of what we drink.
Yes, we do. We drink something that's almost entirely.
It does not meet Brit standards for a true cup of tea.
Oh, you can run your steam on a treadmill. No, yes.
I actually bought a thing that fits under my desk and lets me walk in that. But first of all, it would shake my chair too much for the stream. And second, it'd keep bumping my knees on the desk.
Okay.
Of course, there's no overlooking that.
The fact that Stephen Alexander is going through those things, and which I'm not pushing the issue with him, but I was quite active on the forums, and it does feel a bit sad that people who were rude and impatient got their boxes years ago. Well, maybe someday.
Yeah, squeaky wheel gets the race.
Yeah, replicator, as he says.
That's the nature of the world, is replicator. Okay.
And Belzar said, well, I've never had any doubts as to the sincerity of our Kickstarter projects and that they would deliver eventually, which is more than I can say.
To the best of our extent, and that's what you got to keep in mind. I mean,
we are a non-profit organization.
We're definitely an anti-profit organization at the moment. So we're kind of doing stuff out of our own resources. And at some point, we will probably fold up our heads and say, we can't make these games that are costing us everything we own, for any much longer.
Which is more than I can say for some other Kickstarter, especially when you see them selling the products funded by the Kickstarter at various cons and making dollars off of them while not even updating their Kickstarter backers. That's just not, that's just...
It's also possible they're trying to raise enough money to get the shipping. But they should update the backers.
Yes.
I just posted updates, so we probably have people here that have seen our updates on our 3 Kickstarter campaigns. So I just posted updates, and some of them I hadn't posted for like a year and a half, something like that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I don't
August.
I don't pay any attention to the Kickstarter messages I get from projects that I
skim them, yeah. If I think they're going to deliver something, then I try to get the delivery instructions. But
I generally
don't even get that.
I don't even get that. If I backed something, it's because I appreciate the designer, and I've only played like one game that I ever.
I do that. I do that on Patreon. I have several Patreon subscriptions, which are really, and mostly for like webcomics, and they are thanks for the years of enjoyment I've gotten out of reading the webcomics. And I don't care if I get anything for the Patreon.
Exactly.
On the other hand, with our Patreon,
which you advertised earlier,
which I'm going to advertise again, our Patreon is just absolutely amazing, and you should all back us because I see that our income from Patreon has dropped dramatically in the last few months. So
we're not keeping up our bargain. Clearly, we need to up this ante.
Yeah, well, but people do a lot less than us get more. So
hard to say.
Yeah, they have ways to earn money now. There's advertising, sell digital products.
Yes, we have lost a lot of money.
Like videos and photos to anyone directly on Patreon. No membership required.
Cool.
We can turn this into a sales site. Our membership is $6.86 a month. It was up just short of 1,000. We have 127 paid people right now. I think we had 200 at one point. Maybe it was 150. I think we had 150. But we have, for instance, I'm looking at this, but I'm not showing it. Sorry.
They don't need to see it. This is the details.
The Glory Story Time. This is one of the most important things on our Patreon. Is that Lori wrote a book with Michelle Baker, inspired by Heroes Quest, called By the Book, How to Be a Hero by the Book. And over the course of a couple years, read all the chapters of it on our streams. And we've collected all those videos over on YouTube. And there are links to them in an article on our Patreon.
And so therefore you can see what we did, yes, by the book. And you can see what...
Yes, this is has links to each chapter over. And final chapter is finally uploaded in July of last year. We were missing 4 chapters in the epilogue for several years, which is kind of probably... if you're the type like Lori who can't stand reading a book and not getting a conclusion of it, you'd have hated that.
Does that book have the info about the Ireland Paladin thing? No. This is only the retelling of half of the first game.
Yeah.
It is only the story of how a hero, in this case...
Three siblings.
4 siblings.
4 siblings.
Fighter, magic user,
paladin, and rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there were no paladins in Quest for Glory.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, the 4 siblings.
Well, he isn't a paladin yet. You know, he doesn't become a paladin in the course
the future paladin.
Yeah.
And the current fighter and the future wizard and the wannabe thief.
Right.
Have their adventures in Spielberg.
And so it's the coming of age story of where the main protagonist, Hawk, starts to realize who he is and what he wants to be.
So if you were about 10 or 12 years old when you started playing Quest for Glory, these kids are for you.
Yeah.
I think the oldest one is maybe 14 or 15.
I think 16.
16?
I think the two boys are 16. And then 15.
Falcon and Hawk?
Well, maybe 12. Yeah, something like that. Do you have the Love Rocket yet? You got yours last year. Well, congratulations.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, that's the one
it doesn't exist. It's a figment of imagination.
Yes, clearly, because we've done it for years and never got our luck.
However, they now have at the Traders Post, the trading post, for 100 Traders Tender, which is cheap. You can buy a 2-seater mount that is effectively equivalent to the Love Rocket.
But it isn't as pretty as the Love Rocket.
It's not as pretty, but it allows you to carry your friend with you.
So the answer is no, we do not yet have our Love Rocket, even though we have done that for however many years.
Or 15 years, or however 20 years, or however long it's been around.
Yep. So let's see. The book with the info about the Ireland Paladin thing, that wouldn't actually be in this series because the...
it would be in the Writer's Bible that are only used by the writers.
Yes, it's only
and has
in the
many secrets that
that
are supposed to be gradually revealed by the book.
That go into the understory of things. But this series is only supposed to cover the Quest for Glory games and not the aftermath.
And by the book only covers, as Laurie said, the first half or so of the first game.
Yeah. Because that's as far as we were going. We had the whole series mapped out, and we had connecting tissue and things like that, and all the changes we were going to do all thought about, but not necessarily written down.
Now, so to give an idea of the World of Warcraft thing, is I assiduously avoided World of Warcraft when Michelle introduced Lori to it initially, while I was working in Los Angeles, and I said, I can't play a game like that, I'll get hooked. Well, it turns out, when I did play a little bit of it, I didn't get hooked, and that was because I got seasick instead. I couldn't handle World of Warcraft, the shaky frame rate. But then I made the mistake of upgrading my computer and getting a faster graphics card and a faster processor in my computer. And suddenly the frame rate was no longer shaky, and I could play the game. And I've been playing it ever since, 20 years. But similarly, when they introduced a pet collecting thing inspired by Pokemon, Lori immediately started getting into collecting battle pets, and I said, nah, not interested. I'm busy with my Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, and And I don't really have time for that. And a year or two later, I started collecting pets, and I'm now the number 2 pet collector on my server because I've spent inordinate amounts of time in Game Gold collecting pets.
Brainiac says, I've actually bought a few novel adaptations of games I've enjoyed. Culpa Innata, the first 2 Gabriel Knight novels that Jane Jensen herself wrote. I definitely buy the book. Buy money. Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't cost very much.
No, we wouldn't.
The problem, of course, again, is promoting the book. So we could easily self-publish this book through Amazon or other places. We could try to find a publisher. So Laurie and Michelle did try to find a publisher circa 2002.
Something like that. Yeah, that's about right.
When we were in LA, and they actually got as far as
before that, maybe
contacting several agents, and one agent that Michelle really wanted to work with was interested in the idea, and they sent her full manuscript, and she said, well, no, I don't think I can handle this. And Michelle was so depressed that they stopped doing it.
Yep.
Which made me sad because I think it's a pretty good book. But to be a great book, it probably needs multiple editing passes. And Michelle didn't have the time and energy for that, and Laurie doesn't want to do it without Michelle. And it would be wrong for me to do it.
You could always edit it. Editing is not the same thing, Corey. Let's see. Computer upgrades are a curse. If I stuck with my Atari 800, I'd be far richer today and get a lot more fresh air. Exactly.
And Phantom Beaver says, my previous computer was literally killed off by World of Warcraft. It was a hot summer's day. My graphics card was hitting insane levels with temperatures, and Warlords of Draenor made it finally burn out.
Oh
no.
Because the graphics were starting to really get more sophisticated.
And with, especially if you overclocked it, it got really, really hot.
And so the novelization of Jane Jensen's first Gabriel Knight book was very good and very enjoyable.
Good.
I'll have to, actually read that sometime because it's actually,
It would make a whole lot more sense for us to be writing books than writing computer games, because to create a computer game, we needed a team. We had about 30 people that worked on Hero U Rogue Redemption, and about 15 people at any one time. And
even with Tilly's Tale and Ifeo's Adventure, we have two other people.
We have a full-time artist and a part-time programmer on it. That just basically means
it's all our money.
Yeah. A cheap game is $200,000 or $300,000, and a full game is $1 to $2 million. And if you actually promote it, you're talking $5 to $10 million.
And Arlo asks, is there a Sierra Gamer's Bible? No, there was never that. I mean, the reason we did a game Bible in our collection of stuff was that actually Michelle Baker actually taught me a lot about writing and a lot about why you make a Bible, what you do with the Bible.
And by the way, she's written a few science fiction or fantasy stories.
I think
they're science fiction stories that are probably available on Amazon, and although likely out of print.
Let's see. I preferred the second myself. It felt less like a walkthrough and more as an adaptation to a new medium. Interesting. I see the second of the novelizations where she was starting to get hold of what it meant to write the actual book. Yes. I haven't read the second one. I see it, and if it's not too many dollars, I will get it. I got the first one at sale as a very good price. Yes.
We had an interesting discussion go on I believe it was on Steam. When we first released Hero U Rogue Redemption on Steam, I priced it, I think, $40. Was it $35 or $40? It was $40.
Yeah, because we were going to discount it.
And I thought that was a reasonable price for, a huge indie game that had taken years to develop and etc. And I looked at other games that were out there, like Tides of Numenera and stuff like that, were going for $60, or all the, the PlayStation type games, all the major publisher things. And people said basically you cannot sell an indie game at $40. Indie games, are $1 or maybe $5 or $10. It's ridiculous. We should have to pay $40. And I was told by someone with insight into the Japanese gaming market that boutique-style games in Japan sell for $100 and up. And that's very common because people know that they have a limited audience, they're only going to sell a limited number of units, and that they have to charge that much to pay for the development. Whereas the major publisher ones will go for like $25 or $30. So it's kind of the reverse of U.S. and Europe, where they say that, you know, if it's from a major manufacturer, you know, it's from Activision or something, then, you know, we'll pay $60 for it. And from Electronic Arts, they'll buy every single Madden or every single, you know, NBA 2K, you know, whatever.
So when you did the recalc, how much did original Quest for Glory sell for, and how much was that in today's dollars?
Original Quest for Glory was $50, and that in today's dollars is about $120. So if we were actually selling it for the price of the games that we did in the 90s, we would be charging, this game is bigger than the original Heroes Quest.
Right.
Hero Road Redemption is about the size of Quest for Glory 4, maybe even 5. Oh, so let's call it 4. And that one sold for $60, and would be, you know, about $120 to $150 today. So that's what we should have been charging, is $100 or more. And if we had done that and had comparable sales, then we would have broke even in the game and we'd be making more games.
Right.
But we had people really incensed about the fact that anyone would try to sell an indie game for more than $20.
Yeah, well, that's...
And there was a joke in Secret of Monkey Island about you should never pay more than $20 for an adventure game. And people have taken that literally, and that's maybe not such a good joke for people to take literally.
Yeah. Let's see. The discussion of Sins of the Father and Jane Jensen's things, yes. And
limited run games is starting to help change that you know, market with a bit for the concept of boutique gaming, and yeah, I know they've done reprints of some games that in like quality editions, gold stamped covers and stuff like that.
The classic Sierra adventure games when they first come out cost $60, $60.
Yeah, there were $60 in Canada,
yeah,
right? $50 in the U.S.
Yep.
And I think the price eventually went up to $60 even in the U.S. So yeah, $60 Canadian and back then a Canadian dollar was about $1 or $2. You know, it was about 98 U.S. cents, and now it's like 60 or 70 U.S. cents, something like that. Okay, so Osme asks, do you ever admire the writing of other computer games? And the answer is yes. We loved Secret of Monkey Island. We thought that was, the adventure game.
Yes. What about sci-fis like Star Control? Biased fan here for Quest for Glory and Star Control.
I did not play Star Control. I saw just a little bit of it because we worked with Legend Entertainment on Shannara, and they did Star Control 2. So I saw a little bit of it, and heard it was a great game, but I just didn't play much of that.
The only game I can say that we really, really enjoyed the writing of was SWATR, Star Wars: The Old Republic role-playing game, because they had wonderful character development for your companions and stories in that, and I really enjoyed the companion stories.
And for game playing, not writing, I really like the Heroes of Might and Magic series.
Yes,
that's and got quite addicted to them, but they have very little writing in them. Obviously, World of Warcraft, we play for the combination of the many different modes of gameplay, as well as for the writing.
Yeah. Bill Thor says $60 was a lot of money for a high school student decades ago. The games were on my birthday, Christmas wish list. Yes, exactly. And Brainiac says, the old Monkey Island joke. I wonder if Ron regrets that one. Well, most people won't get that joke.
Just remember that $20 at the time Secret of Monkey Island was written is $50 today.
Yeah. So
you certainly ought to be very happy to pay anything up to $50 for a game.
One other thing to consider, though, is the market is so much larger today. AAA companies pushing prices to $70 and higher just want more profits while continuously releasing broken and unfinished games. Well, they don't want to do that.
No, they don't want to release they want to release polished, finished, clean games. But it's impossible to test a game properly with games that large.
And plus, they're pushing them. I mean,
They're
corporations are pushing them to ship.
And they're pushing the envelope with each game.
Yeah.
And he says, what is ridiculous is so many people keep pre-purchasing games like that when they know there's a very high chance will be a mess on launch day. But that's okay if they eventually fix it.
Yeah.
Was it the author of Mario and such said that a good game is good forever. No, a well-written game is eventually great. A poorly written game is always bad.
Yeah. Or something to that
something
extent.
like that.
Yes, yeah. FOMO-ism.
Okay, so anyway, I'm going to talk about those major AAA companies. They are spending bloody fortunes making these games. The team size in something like a Call of Duty is between 200 and 500 developers. Something like Star Citizen is up to 1,000 or more developers working for years in the games. And then they spend about 2 to 5 times the game budget promoting the game.
Yeah.
And they're trying to recover that. So when they're pushing prices to 70 and higher, even though they're selling millions of units of the games, they're actually not making that much money from them.
They're making money.
They're making more than the rest of us, but it's it's profit margins of 10 to 20%. They're not making 50% profit margins.
Yeah. I bought my Quest for Glory 5 in high school with my own money. Don't remember that one being hundreds. Ron's joke must have been taking effect by then. It was...
Well, it wasn't hundreds at the time. It was hundreds if you look at the inflationary equivalent in today's dollars.
Yeah. I remember seeing a magazine ad for the original SimCity circa 1989. It retailed at $70. According to the CPI index, that's $170 after inflation.
And it was a great game.
Well, yeah, and you wonder why there were pirating of games. I mean, it's like, duh. I mean, people can't afford that kind of money. And so, yeah, you got those games however you got them.
And when I mentioned Heroes of Might and Magic, Emmy asks, HOMM 2 or 3, to which Phantom Beaver replied, yes! I liked them both. I liked 2 better. And I played the original. Heroes of Might and Magic 1 felt very limited. It had, large graphics, so it couldn't fit much on the screen. There wasn't that much you can do, but it was still a pretty good game. But Heroes of Might and Magic 2 hit the sweet spot of the very balanced gameplay. And it was a very difficult game. It was very easy to play the game for hours and then lose. And be in an unwinnable position where you had to start over rather than just going back to your last save. So, very tough games, but fun.
Let's see.
Open source limitations of Heroes game. Anyway, so I don't recommend them. I took all of my Heroes of Might and Magic games, put them in a catalog box, write them big letters at the top, Pure Evil, do not touch, and gave them to a friend of mine to put in his external storage space. And I got them back about 10 years later. And played them for a while, get hooked on them again, and then I finally got over it.
Pure Evil, yeah.
Pure Evil, do not touch.
Okay. I'd argue the real issue with software today, game and office, or even web, is Agile and the way it's implemented in corporate environments. Yes, and the fact that, all right, no game company has ever been managed by professional game people. It's always been managed by corporate scum. And corporate scum are always out to make money for the bosses. And so, therefore, they work to try to make sure that even though the people that are working on these games, and you go into who's working in Blizzard Entertainment right now, are all people who played the game and have been playing it for 10 and 12 years now, some of them.
Or longer.
Or longer, well, however long. And they love the game. They're developing, trying to make the best game possible, but there's always corporate shills at the
So
top.
it's not a specific development process or technology. Agile is a problem. You say the way it's implemented in corporate environments, and that's the key, is that if the corporation is out with the intention of making a profit off their games, then they make games to make a profit. That's proper marketing. Is done before you make the game in the first place and decides what to make. And so you make something with a set budget, a set time schedule. You pre-sell it. You do all the stuff to get stuff, and that means that you do not have that love and that spirit and that creativity in the game that you can have in games that are made for the game rather than for the profit.
Yes, let's see. Belzar says, I quite enjoyed watching the SWTOR extended cutscenes on YouTube. It's like watching a mini movie, and it made me want to know what happened to the characters next. And yes, they are still available on YouTube, and they are worth watching, where you get the storylines, and then you don't have to play all the boring combat that you have to do to get to those cutscenes.
Well, see, in the game, I really appreciated it because you gradually got the reveals on that.
Yeah.
And as you did more stuff in the game, the characters came to you and said, I'm really curious. I never knew my parents and always wondered, what they're like. And you give them leave to go explore, and that ends up leading to some adventures. And I really like that. And when I came back to SWTOR years later, they fast forwarded all that. So now the characters gave you all their stories at once because they, figured that people weren't going to go through and play all that. Step by step, and I hated it.
Yeah, it took out all
why
have the gameplay,
Right.
Publicity budget is 2 to 5 times the development budget.
Yes.
Imagine how great the game would be if and how it would sell by word of mouth if they would just poured that money into development to make the game better.
And unfortunately, it doesn't. If you make the game amazing, if you create the ultimate game of life, the universe, and everything, and put it out there without publicity, it'll sell about as well as Tilly's Tale, which is to say, not.
Yeah. Well, it'll probably sell a little better, but,
Tilly's Tale is not on GOG.com, even though they loved Quest for Glory, and they really heavily supported us behind Hero Your Road to Redemption, and they passed on Tilly's Tale because they didn't think it would sell enough copies.
Yeah, and they were right, as a result. Yes.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Arlo says it's very unlikely any product to spread just by word of mouth. Leisure Suit Larry was a rare exception. Usually people aren't just dying to part with their hard-earned cash. Yeah.
Leisure Suit Larry spread by piracy. Everybody, the word of mouth.
Original.
Yeah, the original led to everybody pirating the game. And a famous incident happened on Fleet Street in London. Of all the different stockbrokers and so on had all pirated Leisure Suit Larry from a particular pirate website in which somebody had put a virus into the game. And it took down the entire London financial sector. And they blamed Sierra, but Sierra was able to trace this back and say, that wasn't our code. You guys illegally downloaded that for a pirate site, and you got what happened. You got the results of that. And it was actually great publicity for Sierra.
It kind of reminds me how pharmaceutical companies actually spend way more dollars on marketing than R&D, despite what they might say. So their exorbitant prices for some meds is not due to R&D costs, no matter what they say.
Part of the exorbitant prices is because a lot of them just buy up a patent from the company that developed it and then jack up the price 5 or 10 times based on how much they paid for it or what they think they can get.
The thing that impressed me about SWTOR is how all of the class campaigns ran in parallel and were interconnected. You don't see the whole picture until you played through the game 8 times. Exactly. It was a brilliantly developed game.
World of Warcraft did that with the Legion expansion, which is really cool. Basically, each class had its own headquarters. So there was a class hall for priests, class hall for wizards and so on, and that basically you had class quests, and you also got to go to the class hall and see people from both factions there and interact with them, and which was normally not allowed in the game. And you had a whole storyline for each class. That was really a lot of fun. And so Lori and I ended up making sure we had a character of every class and played every spec of every class, so we could get every one of those stories.
Yes, and because you had cool things that were only available to a specific class and a specific specification.
And so we now have far too many characters.
Well, yeah. So how do you return love into software development? I'm asking myself this question right now as I'm going through it with my management. I'm a software developer myself. I do what I can to to get an understanding management, but that only goes so far.
Well, you can volunteer to do your work for free, but
Yeah,
that doesn't work. So we have a society, throughout every country that is based on the idea that in order to have a roof over your head and food on the table and so on, you have to work. You get paid to work, and that seems obvious and automatic, but it isn't. Okay, so if we instead had a society in which everyone had access to the minimum things they needed for life, there would be room for creativity, and maybe you could work for luxuries, you could work for travel and stuff like that, but just automatically get the necessities. Then people would have the leisure to do more independent. And that's why a lot of games traditionally have been developed by high school and college students
who had the
living in their living in their parents in their bedroom in their parents' house or the basement, working in the basement and creating games. And they did it because they loved the genre and not because they were trying to make a living from it. Lori and I, we actually did Hero U Road to Redemption because we were trying to get out of debt. And it failed miserably. We went deeper into debt instead. But at this point, we reached retirement age. That unlocked our retirement savings, and we started getting Social Security. And so at this point, we are basically, living on our past glory. And that gives us the time and the leisure to be able to not have to work for a living so we can make games.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Get
old. How about that for an answer? Get old and you can do this. But no, it's always going to be a battle.
Or do small games with your friends on your own time, but don't do the game because you're trying to get rich from it, because you won't.
Yeah, because, you might, if you get lucky, but for the most part,
just don't do it. If it happens, it happens.
Yes.
Don't do it with the intention of getting rich. It's way against the odds. It's a bad poker bet.
Yeah.
But doing games because you love them and want to make something cool and have other people enjoy it, that's a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, D&D was basically you played with, half a dozen people. So it did not distribute to making thousands of people happy. But it was perfectly fine. People played D&D because they enjoyed doing that and playing with people that they had friendships with over the table. Not very many people made money from playing.
We're not much help us, in other words. It is.
But it's you're either going to get rich or you're going to.
We will say this:
have fun.
We have always had, when we were working for Sierra or when we were working for Legend Entertainment, we have always had to fight with
the marketing.
Not the marketing, the bosses, the powers that be. It has always been an uphill struggle to make our games because they generally, if we were lucky, they stayed out of our hand and let us do our thing. And if we weren't lucky, they decided, they had to do.
But in other ways, they were immensely supportive.
Well, yes, support.
Bob Bates was a fantasy writer before he became a game writer, and he supported what we were trying to do.
Well, yes, but we didn't get the same support from Sierra. We had, except that they put in Garuka, and that helped to save us for Quest for Glory.
1 and 2, yeah.
And then we didn't have anybody for the rest of the time.
We had Stuart Mulder, and then we had...
we had Stuart Mulder for one game.
Yeah.
And that was Mike Fairy Tales.
And then we had a musician guy for Quest for Glory 5, who...
they were not...
Kept it going, but... I mean, he basically got management not to cancel the game.
Yes, well...
and he got us an amazing soundtrack and a wonderful musician.
Yes, he did his job.
So yeah, we had more support than we knew. We didn't necessarily get the top, most respected developers, but we always had enough developers to make the games.
I think Phantasmagoria was the first time I saw a ton of marketing for an adventure game. It must have had a huge ad budget. Well, it was an expensive game. They literally built a film studio to do Phantasmagoria. In our little Oakhurst town, they had their own little studio.
They bought a warehouse and turned it into a production studio. And they spent millions of dollars. Phantasmagoria was a large part of the reason why Quest for Glory 5 got delayed. Was that we had started working on Quest for Glory 5 after QG4 shipped, and then QG4 went into the QG4 remake with the CD. And meanwhile, top management passed the word down to our direct manager, who said that he had a mandate that all games at Sierra must have a 20% budget cut. And we said, we just got through Quest for Glory 4, which shipped in a completely unplayable form and was a disaster because it did not have enough budget. It did not have enough time given to it. We need a bigger budget, not a smaller one. And he said, we can't give you that. And we said, well, we can't do Quest for Glory then. And they canceled it.
Yeah.
But that was because Phantasmagoria went way over budget, cost $5 or $10 million at a time when our games cost, $500,000 or so.
Yeah.
But I think we had a $700,000 budget, I think, for Quest for Glory 4, and it wasn't enough.
Do you feel the fights with managements improved your games? And I just don't mean their recommendations. I mean just the fight. The fights with Sierra created Quest for Glory's two cities.
Yeah, the idea of the paranoia of Russ Sierra and so
was
on.
all about Sierra, but it was devastating to us.
Stressful.
These fights with management always took a toll on my mental state every time we did this. And I had quite a few moments. Well, in the course of the 10 years, effectively, that we had, I have 20-some incidents that I had with management that devastated me. And those are the ones I remember, of course.
You're sensitive.
Well, I am, but the fact that I was left in tears kind of say that it was at that moment pretty traumatic, especially since I was basically an introvert who didn't like dealing with people in the first place.
We had one manager that had been brought in, and every female game developer at the company got the story told about them that it had been reported by someone that they had, gotten angry in a meeting and thrown something across the desk or jumped across the desk.
Threw something across. The jump across with your sister-in-law.
Oh, that was yeah.
Well, threw something at the art director.
Yeah, and said that never happened.
Yeah.
And we compared notes because we weren't supposed to compare notes, but we knew all the other designers, and every one of them had the same story told about them.
Yeah.
And it was just nonsense and stupid. But it was used as an excuse to keep pay down and to keep them in their place.
Yeah.
And no, all it did is anger them.
Yeah. Chance Thomas was indeed great, and he is, yes. And dollars are a means to an end, not an end in itself. Yes. As long as you have enough to survive, yes.
Now, the reason that there were 5 games in the Quest for Glory series is because the first game was Sierra's top seller up to that point. In 30 days, it sold over 100,000 copies. And that, that was a new record.
Yeah.
And eventually went on to sell, at least 250,000 copies and probably 500,000 copies with the remake. So that meant it was profitable for Sierra. They kept making them. And unfortunately, there was a cap on that, and the game started selling just about 100,000 copies each. The market shifted to where games went from taking 18 months to sell half the copies they'd sell lifetime to taking 3 months to selling half the copies they'd sell lifetime. Mm-hmm. We called that the half-life of game.
Yes, yes.
So there was nothing special about Quest for Glory anymore by the time we got up to 4.
Yes.
In terms of profit.
Quest for Glory 2 was highly reflective of what went on at Sierra. And yes, we had Ottavis, courtesy of Sierra.
Bill Davis, was our creative director.
Yeah. So,
Al Skirva, who's in the cage, was the art director.
Yes. All of our people, and of course Kaveen.
Yeah, Kaveen was Rick Cavan, who was general manager. Yeah. So we brought in all our villains were people who worked for the company in management.
And Osmi says, "I'm sorry you went through this. I can relate, but I'm still sorry. Yeah, we're sorry we went through it too. And yes, we can." And honestly, misogyny at its not finest, that was the only real case of misogyny that I had at Sierra. And it is a miracle because everybody else that I know, the women that worked in other companies, had a lot more of it. So, yeah.
Gin O'Hain was the co-author of EcoQuest along with Jane Jensen, and got laid off in one of the big layoffs and was totally distraught. Not to mention the fact she owned a house. Did she own that house?
Yes, she owned Garuda's house.
Yeah, she had really
and
made sacrifices
yes,
for it.
Once you got laid off at Sierra, what do you do? Because there is no
other jobs in Oakhurst. So we gave her the pep talk and said, you'll find something better. Well, she sort of did. She immediately got a job at Electronic Arts for a lot more money. But she discovered that Electronic Arts was totally misogynistic.
Yeah.
It was the old boys club, and that if you were a woman working there, it was rough.
Yeah. And so was...
I think Valve had that problem too.
And yes, Valve did, but so did Ellen going over to
Origin Systems.
Origin Systems. So yeah. So Sierra was the best place to work as a woman.
Sierra was founded around Roberta Williams games, and Ken knew it, and so he respected women developers.
Yes. And K-Dub says, I worked at an insurance company, and one boss I had constantly threw things, broke glasses and pictures. It was crazy, and that is insane that anybody can be there. Yes, that does that kind of behavioral problem. Yes, I work for an IT company now, and we have a boss that cusses people out, picks on women,
and people of color, and everyone knows. But yeah, that was the other thing I learned over actually before I was even at Sierra, is that the managers never take the heat. It is the line workers, the people that are in the trenches are the ones that take the heat. And if you try to say, hey, I couldn't get my job done because my manager made mistakes, now then the manager is always the golden-haired child. And people that work for them, people at the bottom get laid off. And the managers survive everything.
The people that were in power at Sierra were not that kind of person. Most of the people who were, the power people that I had problems with were passive aggressives. And so therefore their things were doing things behind your back and that. And
there were a couple of sexist people there, but they were not they didn't dominate. They weren't the main people.
Yeah, and I didn't have to work with them. So yeah. And that is that where Valve Game came up with the name for Half-Life? In my head.
Yeah, the Half-Life of game sales.
Yeah.
And that was just about radioactivity. So,
yeah.
But it may also have been, the fact there was a life simulation.
Yeah, and it sucks to hear about the people at Sierra, but thanks for turning your pain into amazing art. Quest for Glory 2 is legit one of the greatest games ever written.
And I need to clarify, every time this comes up, it was not a horrible experience.
Yes.
It was a roller coaster ride.
Yes.
You had moments of pure terror, and you had moments of
despair,
exhilaration and joy.
Yes. There were those moments.
And most of the people we worked with were amazing. Yeah. We had great artists, great programmers, great designers.
We were
Christy
very
Marks
lucky.
Was unbelievable.
We were very, very
Ellen Guan, amazing person.
And so
Stuart Mulder taught me everything I know about management.
Yep.
Really good people that we worked with. But the fact is that, when Sierra went public, and they did their 10Q filings and so on, I read through it all and was able to calculate out the amount of bonuses they paid and the profit margins and so on. And knowing that everybody that came into Sierra, all the developers are making 30 to 40% less than they would if they'd been working in the Bay Area, and knowing what the total payroll was, I could calculate out that the amount of which people were underpaid was exactly the profit margin of the company. So they had a very good profit margin of about 20%, but that was entirely on the backs of how much people were underpaid. But that's what kept them going as a company. That's why I said there were more Quest for Glory games because the first few were profitable, and people kept working there, and the company kept making games because they managed to turn a profit, largely through underpaying people. So is that wrong? Or is it the only way they can make it work?
It's the only way it worked at that time, yes. Roller coasters is bringing it go, so I can go to Kings Island and get the feeling of being a Sierra designer back in the day. Good to know, yeah. Yes. Quest for Glory 2 is an incredible piece of work. The creativity, the art, the story, the RPG elements. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I find it a little bit, some of our decisions were not as fun as they could have been.
Yeah, the way we did the desert, I like the alleyway maze, and I think it has its place, and I like the fact that we had the magic maps. You can bypass it once you've been to places.
Once you had the magic map, it's fine.
So I think all that worked, but could be frustrating. And the desert was a little too sparse.
Everything was too sparse, I think. Now, I would love to enrich that
But
game.
the technology that our people developed to make that work was amazing.
Yes, and they were pushing the boundaries of what was possible to new in a game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it also had a lot of bugs when it first came out, or just before it first came out, but even when it did come out. And some of those got fixed. They never did fix the memory leak in combat with the Jackal Man.
Yes. The mazes were fine if you had you were an analytical person who was happy to map it logically.
See, I grew up on wizardry and stuff, and you had to draw.
Yes.
So
yeah, from
maps.
that school of thought, some people could get away with it. It was just a little bit too sparse for my taste. There was not enough going with it, and I actually do appreciate the remake and what they were doing with it. I think it could go even further if anybody actually had the money to do these things. Yes, I was that mapping nerd, yes, and yeah, all those people that were, and therefore you didn't mind those stupid things. But people change in, been there, done that kind of behavior, and it isn't that fun on the 35,000th time that you do the same behavior. So we tried in the games always to consider what was fun and what was getting to the point of tedium. At any rate, I think we about came to the time period.
Yeah, we're at the end of our time.
And we didn't even get to play the game.
No.
Yes. The hardest thing in
2
the
weeks.
game was
We'll try
doing
again.
that tightrope with load skill. Yes, and there was very few places to get that agility up.
The
So,
stuff
yeah.
in that is, did we give you enough feedback to know that you will get it eventually, and you should keep trying?
I look forward to seeing what happens to Sean's next. You'll have a ways to go before that happens. Yeah, because honestly, if we actually ever get to make the Hero U sequence, then you've got Wizard Way, then you have the Way of the Warrior, or whatever the name of that game's going to be. Then you have the Paladin game.
And then you have the game with all four.
And then you have the game with all four. So you have quite a few years before that would happen, even in real life, if that ever happened, yes. And Phil, ping me if you want a hand looking for the Beast Within novel, yeah. And it was satisfying chatting with you, even if we missed Quest for Glory 1. Yes, just chatting made my...
Well, you're very loyal, Brainiac.
Yes, and yes, we're happy to chat. I mean, and really, we weren't going to get very far.
Reminisce and tell the same stories over and over. We try to do them a little bit
we do
very
our
each
best,
time.
and that's why we...
And we get new people in the stream, so we have new people we can share old stories
And that's
with.
why we love talking. I mean, it's all about talking to you people. I mean, all of you here, all of you viewers, you are what makes this going, and we're really thankful to you. Yes. My friend, who's a chef, would likely suggest that branch of heroism for the actual 5th game. I honestly, a chef game would probably go in the Tilly Tale, the Summer Days series. So we had...
Would absolutely work.
It would absolutely work as a Summer Days game. And yes, I would...
We could have a whole game about a cooking competition and stuff like that.
Yes. So right now we have the Summer's Day is Tilly's Tale, which is the rogue game, and then Ifeo's Adventure, which is the wizard's game, and then we have the warrior game.
So in a way, it totally parallels what we're doing with the original Hero U series.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're not calling it Hero U because the games are smaller.
That's why it's Summer Days, because it is a different game style altogether. But yes, if we actually make some money off of these games eventually, then we will continue. And Corey we're all looking forward to seeing Sammy's story, because that is going to be so much fun. It's visually, we're upping the ante on the art styles. We've really got some great
Corgi
characters.
main character, how can you go wrong?
Yeah. So at any rate, thank you all.
Wait. I was going to say,
okay.
As Belixar said, my OC in the Hero Yearbook is enrolled in the culinary program. And this is the collaboration we have with the players. Lori came up with the idea we would have a yearbook as a way of rewarding higher level backers of Hero U Road to Redemption. And we started getting things in, and we wanted to make them into sections. We said, okay, we'll do it by character class. There's the fighter, the magic user, the thief, and the paladin, or whatever. And he said, we got too many people for that. I got to break it down a little more. And he said, well, things we have in the game are the science class.
Well, it was also, what did the players say about their character? Oh. And if they mentioned, enough people mentioned food, that it was like, aha.
An awful lot did. We said, okay, clearly they should be in the chef class. So
yeah,
we created a culinary class.
And there were enough bards that, we could do the bard group. And so we kind of were doing bard group. And yes, we did do a bard group. Remember? Lorenzo, when we had the School for Heroes, we had the bard group. So,
and then we had the scientists, people that had stuff that sounded too modern to be in a fantasy game.
Yeah. So therefore,
we had the science class, and so now that's a part of the game world. So having done the yearbook, we say, okay, we really need to do a game now that has bards, and a game that has, of course, just a Bard's Tale long ago. But anyway, we need bards. We need chefs. We need scientists.
Yes. So we need to continue making these games. In other words, so we will try. And thank you all. You are really encouraging us to continue on this journey of game development.
And if any of you has a personal connection with Warren Buffett or Paul Allen or whatever,
just send them
feel free to get them to send you a few tens of millions our way.
Programmer class would be pretty boring. It would be. Fortunately, we won't have to deal with it. Thanks for streaming.
I think actually a programmer class could be awesome.
Says
because for people like Castle Dr. Brain.
Yeah.
It would be puzzle oriented.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't really be programming. It would be, basically solving, because that's real software design is about solving problems.
Okay.
So we'll have that. Okay.
We'll totally pay you
a logic class.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll teach how to bolt too.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, so I don't know about Kickstarters. They're stressful. They're time consuming.
Well, we still will. We're going to have one for Sammy's story, so that's in the works.
But the right way to do a Kickstarter is the way they did, like, what was the Blood, the vampire game and stuff like that, or Star Citizen. Star Citizen, he spent $1 million or $2 million on the video and prototype before he did the Kickstarter.
Well, we're going to have Sammy's story mapped out by the time we do it.
I understand that, but really we need to promote it if it's going to be successful.
At any rate, thank you all. Yes, Corey giving a tutorial on creating the SCI engine. Yeah. A pre-order for Sammy's game. Yes, that's what it is going to be. Yes, a pre-order style game. All right. Thank you all.
Yeah, we need to get our website with pre-orders and stuff.
Yep. See you all. Well, Kickstarter.
Thanks for coming.
Pre-orders, in other words. Bye-bye.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you for that following. Yes. I got here because of the Kickstarter emails. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you got here. Well,
Okay, so definitely check out our YouTube channel. Have our Twitch channel.
And have a nice dinner.
Come visit our Discord.
Yes.
All that stuff's available.
And see you next 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. What's next? The 24th. February the 24th is our next one.
Happy
Hasta la vista, baby.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Local Talk Link Access Protocol.
Okay.